This being on a Windows machine is a trip. What's up, guys? This being on a Windows machine is a trip. What's up, guys? There we go. I closed myself out. How's it going, chat? Where is my chat? There's a lot of you guys early today. What's up, Darko? Blue, Fierce, Cheese, Blue Dragon, Sam Jammer. I like that name. Zab Sashin, Tester, Wanta, Jackhame. Oh, I see Bug Disclose guys in here. Hello. What's up, Bugbot? Zero Day. X and Dark Code. Hello. There's a lot of people here today. How's it going? What's up, Chizard? There's a lot of new names too. Hey, and Jill. Alright, so I figured with Shubs coming on today, we should play around with some of his tools. What do you guys think? Hey, by the way, am I lagging or is everything smooth as it should be? Hey, Blue Dragon. No lag. I know there shouldn't be any lag. I just spent all my savings on this piece of crap. Big shout out to Donut. Before I do get started, let's show this off. Thanks, Donut. Battery's dead on us, but thank you for helping me with the PC. No, it's not lagging. I don't believe you. I don't believe a word you say about lag. There is absolutely no reason it's lagging unless you are using really crappy, well, not really crappy, but because I know Twitch doesn't work in some countries that well. But it shouldn't be lag because of me. I'm no longer streaming on my laptop. I wanted to show you guys what I used to stream on, but it's not here. I used to stream on a laptop, MacBook Pro. Thank you for the sub or the follow, whichever that is. So yeah, I don't like YouTube for stream. YouTube has been very, very weird towards me. They've been demonetizing all my videos because it's hacking. So unless they fix it and figure it out, I'm not gonna stream anything on there. At least Twitch doesn't.
1, 2, 3.
Hold on, I'm gonna play some music. I went to my own YouTube channel. Let me fix the sound. I think someone just said it's way too loud. One sec. Yeah, this setup hasn't even been 24 hours since I've gotten it, so bear with me while I figure it out. I haven't streamed anything on it. And I lost an entire monitor just now. Happy Sunday, guys. Almost there. Yeah, first time streaming on this machine. Hopefully the sound works the way I want it to. Otherwise, there won't be any music, more than likely. I gotta get some speakers. And we'll see where it goes. What should we play? Same thing as always? Lo-fi hip-hop? Let's do it. Sound doesn't want to work on this laptop. Alright, chat, how does that sound? Beautiful too, Nafi. I'm waiting for you to come and join us one day. Hey, before I get started, guys, I need a huge favor. I need you all to go on your Twitter. I need you to go to twitter.com/viewerhouse, okay? Once you go to this page, I want you to tweet at him. And do this right now, please. I want you to tweet at him. And I want you to say, actually, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna do it. I want you to tweet at him and say, click right here and say, when will you go on the Amass Recon? He's being difficult and not listening to me, so if you don't mind, I need you to do that right now before we start. So please, go ahead and go ahead and I know why volume is so high. There you go. There we go. I turned it down. I didn't realize my audio was way too loud. Alright, do me a favor. Go ahead and tweet at him really quickly. I'm gonna put on Ubuntu more than likely. But yeah, go ahead and do this. I want to get some tags. Give me at least a couple of them. Do it really quick. And I would like to get started soon, but I need to make sure we spam him really quickly. He won't listen to me even though we're really good friends. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to listen. Thank you for the follow. If you want his Twitter handle, I'm gonna send you guys a link. So go right here, at him, saying, "Hey, when will you show up on Naham's stream?" Maybe that way we can force his hand a little bit. I'm going to start retweeting every single one of them at some point. I want him to come on the show and talk about Recon. Him and I have done some really cool stuff together. Brett is kind of busy, and I get it. But at the same time, like, come on, give me a date. When do you want to join? Am I right or am I wrong for wanting him to be on here? Alright, so let's go look at where is Firefox? Alright, let's go to Shubs' GitHub page and see what kind of tools he has. I know he has Altdns and Common Speak. This one we gotta talk to him and see how he came up with it. I haven't tried this out. We have to try this one day because this finds really cool stuff. I gotta ask him how he came up with this. I'm going to probably do, so I want to focus on really doing Altdns today. Mostly because I want to ask Shubs how he runs Altdns himself. And what is the right way of, I mean, there's no right or wrong way of using things more than likely, but I want to know how he uses it. So, let's get to it. Also, get used to this ugly terminal. It's not going to go anywhere. The one thing that I hate being on a Windows machine is how ugly things look. But it is what it is. Let me know if you can see the terminal, and if it's not zoomed up. I'll try to zoom it in as much as I can. Alright, let's see if Altdns is still on here. Oh, it's not on here. Alright, let's install Altdns. I can't paste stuff? What kind of sorcery is that? Hackintosh, because, I don't know. Didn't really think about it until we built it, to be honest. I'm not using Linux subsystem for Windows. Should I? Hyper is pretty but kind of slow. Yeah, I gotta play with it. I haven't been on a Windows machine in God knows how long. Maybe 6 years at least. So it was already a struggle to figure things out. But I am gonna run Ubuntu. I couldn't get Ubuntu to run earlier. Time was limited. But I am gonna be streaming on Ubuntu. The reason why I don't want to stream on Ubuntu is like I want to make sure there's no lag. So I gotta look into how to do it. Thank you for the hint, head ringer. Alright, so Altdns is ready. I think. It's still not ready. It is ready, okay. Input, data where it goes, and then this is where we're going to give it the word list. So let's go to recon data, and let's go to Yahoo. Whoops. Go to the Windows store and look. We'll do it. Thank you for that. By the way, how's everyone doing on this Sunday? Anyone do anything fun? Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm making its own folder for Altdns. I gotta push all this to GitHub at some point. But we'll make its own, and I think what you're supposed to do for Altdns, based on what he says, is the words that we want to give it. Example, admin, staging, dev, QA. Okay. So I'm going to create a new word list, words.txt, and excuse me, I am going to give it admin, backend, internal, API, staging. I'll do staging like that. I've seen it a couple of times like that. Dev, QA, UAT. Thank you for the bits. Thank you, thank you. Or the cheer. Does it come with a word list already? Oh, it does. But yeah, I don't want to... like, some of these make sense, some of them don't. So let's just look at the ones that I think would be helpful to us. Let's do Jira and Confluence just to be safe. Because if I give it all these links, I don't want to see a lot of these. Like, EU might be cool, but I don't know. I want it to be... I want to go through this list quick. I don't want it to be a 4-hour-long brute force, you know? Alright, we'll give it V1, V2, V3. And we'll give it VPN, secure, web app. Swagger's a good one. And stage. Staff isn't that one. Okay, I think that's good enough. Beacon, Jenkins, software. Okay, okay. Alright. Alright. Sound better now? Does that look better? Yeah, I don't want to give it a big list because I want to be able to enumerate this quick. I'm going to automate it. I want to do... Let's see. Let's pull up a profile. So we made Amass last time. Big shout out to X. I want to say XL is how you say your name. For coming up with this and giving this to us. We'll call it Altdns, but we'll call it ADNS. And what we will do is... I should go to cert Altdns. I think that would be cool. Because we can pretty much... should we do cert.sh and then feed it into... Alright, let's do this. We'll call ADNS, and we'll just put in the syntax for it now. And then let's figure out our workflow for it, and we'll automate it again. I don't want to automate something dumb and then, like, regret how I did it. So we give it subdomains.txt, outputs it to data.output, uses words, R, and then saves it to results.output. But instead of doing this, maybe we should give it a name. So yeah, what we'll do is, let's see if this works. Hey, Yusuf. I don't know if it's lagging for you. There's no lag on my end anymore. I haven't had anybody say it's lagging. Alright, so what we will do is, what we're going to do is, so we create an ADNS, and ADNS takes a file, whatever we give it. What we will do is we'll hit cert.sh, and after hitting cert.sh, we'll feed it into our tool. So with cert.sh, as always, actually let's do Amass. Screw it, let's do Amass. We're going to use this thing from last week, AM, and we're hitting, someone give me a good Yahoo domain, good subdomain that we have to hit. Hey, root it now. Let's see if there's any cert.sh admin sites we can find real quick. ADX is ADX was a good one last time. Thank you for the follow, ANEXZH. Thank you. Alright, so Corp isn't a good one to do. Maybe deals. Sports has some admin stuff. These are new. This was just logged not too long ago. Alright, let's do with sports. But before we start, I'm just curious, so I'm gonna just, alright, just making sure. Alright, let's do, let's see what else has admin in it. Thank you for the follow, Ghostly. NE1, let's see what that is. NE1. Alright, Amass, you're up. Oh, come on. I absolutely hate this terminal. I cannot wait for Ubuntu. Hey JPi, we are doing some recon on Yahoo before, and we're going to actually use Altdns, a tool written by Shubs, who's also joining me on this stream later. Yeah, all the Asian sites do look juicy. All you gotta do is hit that Google Translate, dude. Also, if you still haven't done it, just make sure you tweet at Zayat, aka Beaver House on Twitter, to join my stream at one point. Does it look like, let's leave this alone. It feels like it's choking, and it's choking hard. Let's give it some more time. Oh, there we go, it didn't choke. Just needed some time. Okay, a lot of mail, some ADX stuff, some client stuff, more ADX. These are actually all, they haven't all been probed with Tom's tool. So maybe after this is done, we can start feeding it into Altdns. Also, I'm not sure if I should put Nightbot on timeout or not, but we'll see. CS finals are out right now? Really? On Twitch? Who's broadcasting that? Alright, so here is everything that HTTP Pro is going to find from that one. It was a lot of names discovered, but only 348 certs. 348 from certs, and the APIs are what got us the most, I assume. What's interesting is seeing if anything comes up with Altdns. But it's just some Ukrainian team getting bodied, so that's funny. Hey, I have my games ready for Saturday now. So if anyone wants to play PUBG, CS, some Toxic Rainbow Six, and Watch Dogs, let me know. Watch Dogs is really, really fun. I'm really excited to play it on PC. Thank you for the follow, Shadow. Alright, so while this is running, let's do another Amass on somewhere else. Let me clear this out. Source my profile before I forget. So my aliases work, the ones that we just wrote. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit AMT with Amass. There's this domain right here that says AMT. It has admin on it. And I really want to see what this is. And hopefully Amass finds some cool stuff. I'm down for lag your R6 or CS. Dude, absolutely. I want to get this. I really want the new Watch Dogs too. Comes out in March, right? I think it comes out in March. I am currently running an Ubuntu server through my crappy Windows box that I don't like, but it does have an API. I mean, you can just make this and that would work. Should work. Hold on, I don't want to lose this page, so let's go over here. I have to rewire my whole brain with how shortcuts work on Windows. I couldn't do putty, so I had to use this instead. This is called Solar Putty. Wow, nothing came back with this. Cool. Yeah, this is how it looks for Crt.sh. NFS admin, that's pretty cool. IPR, there's a lot of admins that we missed. What's IPR? I'm using putty. Hey Reflexon, how's it going? It's been a while. Yeah, I'm not too happy with it. I miss my Mac, but whatever. It's part of life. I'd rather have quality content for you than for you guys to watch than be stuck on my Mac for personal reasons. Alright, this is still going strong. That didn't find anything, surprisingly, so none of these were usable for us. So let's go ahead and just do another one. I really want to feed some stuff into Altdns, so let's try another domain. az.yahoo.com. Oh, wait, where'd it go? There we go. Do you use alias? Do you recommend some of them to have better person recon and time? I don't know what your second part is, but yes, I do use my aliases. If anyone wants to follow along with the stream, this is the Amass configuration thing that we wrote. I'll copy this right now. This is the Amass alias, and the Altdns one I'm just not going to give it to you guys because it's easy to run it on your own. Alright, this is getting kind of boring just waiting for this to be done, so let's just do some other stuff. Someone wanted me to try a new, let's do find domain and hit with, let's hit something with find domain so we don't have to rely on one source. I'm going to hit API and see if we can find some backends that are related to the API. Thank you for the follow, Trampolata. We did Gemini a lot. Let's do Insight has some new stuff, it looks like. Never seen this one, or CP. What's this? Let's check it out. Alright, let's go back one. There we go. Shortcuts. GN11 or G11N has some stuff, but nothing interesting in it. Insight doesn't look fun. Let's see this one. This looks, see, there are a lot of them, so MGMT is another word we should look for, and so is portal, maybe. So let's really quickly just recon data, Verizon Media, Yahoo, Altdns, and then we'll call words. Let's add MGMT and let's add portal just to have it. It's running in Rust. I don't think Donut's going to be here anytime soon. There we go. If you say his name 3 times, it will appear from the shadows. Donut, Donut, Donut. Is Donut here now? Nope. No donuts here today. Alright, let's get serious. This is serious business. This is not anything to be joked with. Let's find some really interesting domains. This is still going, surprisingly. There's nothing on the AEZ domain, which is really nuts. What about the AMT domains? No? Alright. 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 Any is still going. Let's leave that alone. Let's find some more. Partner Insights. Let's see what that has to offer. I just unrecorded my entire stream. Hopefully this one worked. I have no clue if it's recording it right now or not, actually, to be honest. Oh boy, I have no clue if I'm recording. One sec, team, one sec. I gotta figure out how this works. One second, guys. I just realized I gotta make sure this works. I want to make sure I have the video of at least interviewing Shubs. Alright, it works. Let's unrecord it. And let's adjust some settings really quick. Wow, really? I can't do that right now, can I? Because I'm recording, I'm streaming already, it won't let me do it. Alright, well, let's start recording it again. So, what we're doing is, whoops, we are going to run Amass, let it find some stuff, and find domain is going to run some stuff, and we're going to feed it all through Altdns. Yeah, AMT is kind of small. I don't think it's worth looking at. Partner Insight doesn't have a lot. It just has API stuff, but that's about it. I'm waiting for it. I'm really hoping with that this one comes back with some data at least. Location. We've never looked at location or Sherpa. What is this one? Let's see what this one is real quick. One too many dots. There we go. So this one doesn't have a whole lot, Sherpa. The other option we have, which we've never looked at, is going to censys really quick. Let me log in actually. Let me log in. Let's look at censys and see if we can find any admin domains. Alright, there's my login. Let's push you down here. Oh my god, Windows, what are you doing? Nope. Nope. Alright. Alright, so let's look at certs only. And let's look at yahoo.com. And so anyone has a lot. Data has some stuff that could be interesting. I think this is never going to go anywhere because of how much data is behind it, but I'm going to give it some time. Let's see what FD finds on data. But before I do, let me make sure the syntax is right for FD. So it puts it out to TXT right here, I guess. Alright, let's try it. Should we do data or... How big is data? Is it pretty big? Bottom right corner? What do you mean bottom right? Oh. So data looks like it has a lot of stuff on it. Okay, let's do it. It's probably asleep. It's 10 o'clock here. Alright, so I found some stuff. Not a whole lot, but what we're going to do is we're going to cat and feed it to probe. Previous Thursday video, what are you talking about? I don't do Thursdays, unless you mean what we do with Stoke, and that, if you look at my Twitter, we had to cancel, unfortunately, for this week and the week after. DataX internal, what is that? Oh, why did I cancel? I meant to copy, Jesus. DataX internal is what it was, .data.yahoo.com. It's kind of sus. What is it? DataX internal. HTTPS. Ooh, shiny. It goes to Okta. I'm trying to copy this without canceling it. I'm afraid I'm going to cancel. Oh my god, I'm going to lose my shit with this thing. Trying it one more time. No, he's not on yet. Okay, one more time, and hopefully this time it won't mess anything up. So we're going to do directory search on this domain. Let's just start small with HTML, see where it goes. If it finds anything, no, everything is behind Okta. Nope, not doing that. Party does copy by mark by default. Event. Okay, so let's run this list right here through. Alright, we're going to run this thing. Nope, that didn't work. Oh, did that work? Okay, so it's Alt-C on Windows to copy. Alright, got it. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to call Altdns, what we just wrote, and let's see if this will actually work. No, it doesn't work that way. Because I call it ADNS. What's the story behind the house using Windows? The story is that I was lagging really hard. And I was tired of lagging, so now I'm on a Windows machine because I have more specs on this. Alright, first run of Altdns. Let's see where it goes. In the meanwhile, we're going to look for more domains. Did I close Crt.sh? No, let's do this. You go back here. If I could do this, it would be very nice, but not working. Struggle is real today. I don't know if I want to post this video on YouTube now with how much I'm struggling with Windows. Okay, screw it. Let's see what else is on here. I've been kind of slow today. I want to pick it up a little bit. It's getting a little slow. Okay, GQ1, AH is not that fun. We looked at it before. But it's starting to look like AH has some stuff on it. Proxy async goes through abuse also. Let's skip it for now. GQ1, BF2, we've looked at those before. GQ, BF2, more of it. I wonder if I could just throw in an admin in there and see if it brings me admin stuff. So let's go to the next page on that, and then we'll just put in. This usually works with Showdown. I don't know if it works with Censys, so we'll see. Hold Windows and arrow to the left. Oh, it works. Look at that. Awesome. But for now, I need to be. Oh my god. I'm gonna title this video "Come Watch Me Struggle with Windows on Live." Twitch stream. UAD2. Ooh. Okay, let's see what this is. UAD2. UAD2, I've never seen that. Alright, I think Nightbot is doing some crazy shit. Nafinet, get off the stage. Stop spamming caps. Why is it doing that with Nightbot? Is Nightbot supposed to do that? I just added that, so thinking about putting it on a timeout if it's doing this too much. Nothing on U82. Interesting. So it's probably not logging anything for the certs on it. IR2 is corporate. We'll skip the corporate stuff. They've gotten better with that. Alright, let me figure out Nightbot real quick. It's a lot of domains. 4 hours left? Jeez. So it looks like by the time we're done with this stream is when we'll be able to actually look at the results. Excuse me. Disaster, BF1, BF1, GQ1. Let's skip all that. I'm also going to quickly just I am Naham and I am A. I'm looking at Nafi's messages. I got timed out. Alright, I gotta kill off this thing. Because it's, I can't see everyone's. I'm killing off Nightbot, it's gone. There we go. Alright, Nafi, you're free to do whatever you want. I killed off the bot. I will let you spam me with all the caps you want. Hey, Skynet. The real question is, when is the Nafinet is going to join me on this stream? Next Sunday? But I can't do next Sunday. Next Sunday is when... who joins me next Sunday? Someone joins me next Sunday. I have no idea who. Somebody's joining me next Sunday just because I know all the way through this month. Oh my god, I can't even touch today. I mean, type today. Somebody else is joining me this week. Oh, Peter Jaworski. That's right. Jaworski, Cyber Mentor, and Tom Nom Nom are next. But I do want Nafi on them. Bump them, I'm more important. I'll hit you up after this and we'll set a date. Love to have you on here, man. Would be a blast, I feel like. Yeah, eventually I want to do that kind of stuff, but right now I want to just focus on finding more stuff. I feel like I haven't even covered anything with censys and Shodan, and also kind of showing what different tools people could use, you know. If you go to /events on my page, you can see all the events that I'm doing for Recon on Sundays. Tom Nom Nom should be the last week of September, last Sunday of September. What is this? DQ Central Dev A Run. You're having trouble with this, but okay, I guess not. There's more people coming. I have Jeff Foley hopefully coming, the author of Amass, sometime soon. Jason Haddix sometime soon. Donut is going to join me soon. Nafi has to join me soon. It's not an option. Hopefully he joins me soon. A couple other hackers. If you guys go and spam Zayat, I really want him on here, so you guys should just go and tweet at Zayat. Again, go to twitter.com and go to twitter.com house, and I need you to tweet at him asking him, when will you come on the Homsex Recon Sunday stream? Just do that really quickly. Do it now. Don't wait till later. Do it now. So we can get him on this thing. Send him some tweets to come on here. SG3 has some corporate stuff on it, but I don't think we're going to find much on there. GQ1 and BF1 have been huge. Maybe we can break up GQ1 to something interesting, like do VIP on BF1 instead of doing all of it. Yeah, anyone is the one running right now. It's taking forever though, but it is finding some weird stuff. JSS, what's that? I think the better idea is to just break up anyone to alright, let's see what this finds. Yeah, I think it would be cool to break up anyone just because how big it is. Because HTTP Pro is just going through all this garbage here. And probably none of these are hitting, so it's taking a while. Attachment, ooh, API bin. So this probably wants us to do a amount of sessions, alright. Actually, let's see what this does. Let's do a, let's see if this works. One sec. So let's do a curl, and then, there we go, let's try this. Didn't say anything, gives 200. So something here we can mess with. I was expecting it to pretty much tell me to screw off. Let's see. Alright, there we go. Let's look at this really quickly. So it does a post. It does agree with post. Yeah, I did type 2 on accident, but I don't know if it makes a difference. Yeah, it doesn't make a difference. I don't want to touch this anymore. If someone wants to mess with it, you're more than welcome to. I don't want to mess with it live, but it looks pretty interesting. Some other stuff like icon and client. Yeah, it's got to be. Let's see. What does client show us? Yeah, it is Jam Software JSS. Not a whole lot on there. UI probably is gonna not give us a whole lot. It's probably disabled. Knowing Verizon Media, they probably disabled it. Yeah, there's something probably behind UI if we hit it. And then web goes to index.html. Nothing super interesting. I'll play with this more. Like register is interesting that it comes back as 302. Good luck. Whoever wants to hit this, you're more than welcome to, especially if it's on Corp. Okay, so let's go back to this and this. Let's see what else we find. Did it work with the admin right here? No, didn't give us anything admin. Alright, let's see. NetOps. Let's skip that for now. I think starting next week, I'm going to start getting more organized with these, and I have an idea how to make it organized. I have a little bit of an idea how I want to organize these, and it involves me creating a Google Sheet of some sort. So, and we're going to enumerate the crap out of everything we can. BF1 TGT, what is that? Let's check it out. Doesn't have a lot of stuff, just proxies. Alright, worth a try at least. GQ2, let's see, GQ2. So GQ2 looks like it has some stuff. I think FD is done already. Yeah, FD was done already. So let's just hit it with FD, gq2.yahoo.com. There was an update to FD also, if anyone wants to go down on it. And if anyone wants to see FD, here is what I am running for FD. So if you want to try it out, alright, so let's see what GQ2 has, or GQ2. It looks pretty interesting on here, or on here, I mean. It looks interesting when you look at some of the stuff it brought up. Like, it seems like it has a couple more subdomains underneath it, so let's give it a try and see what it finds. Probably isn't finding anything so far, so. SG3. Alright, let's see what that is. Lots of corp stuff, more corporate stuff. Might be good to hit it. There's a lot of dev staging stuff on here. I wonder if there is any reference to this on GitHub. I'm not logged in, so I have to do it this way. Yeah, not a whole lot. I think I'm the only one that has any references to it. Let's look at the list right here and see what looks interesting to us. Because we found a lot of random crap. Some of us think the Asian sites look really fun. We can hit some of these, like back-end and front-end stuff right here. Billing and finance on TW are really fun, it looks like. So what if we do, what was it? Let's see. So it's beta and service plus. This is what we want to enumerate. So I want to enumerate these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put service plus right here. And then I'm going to put the country right there. But that doesn't give us a whole lot. It does give us the back-end stuff. So it might be a small service. What's the other one? Service plus is already done. Bid. Definitely an experience. Saw some dude live streaming himself showing off 20K Gucci handbags. On the Yahoo TW site? That's wild. Alright, this one looks a little bit bigger. I don't think any of these will open, like this one. Oh, it does load. Let's see what this has on it then. Wow, nothing came back from GQ2. That is really interesting and wild if you ask me, but I feel like we're missing a very big portion of Yahoo because I'm not thinking right. There's got to be more than just 268 domains. Let's do what Doggy G was telling me last week was look at the host name. So this is going to TWV, right? We're going to copy this thing and we're going to plug it into here and see if we can find more subdomains. This is kind of what he was saying. Find a true host name of that site and you can find other stuff. So this one wasn't the best. I wonder what this is. Okay, we'll brute force this in a sec. So that's what he was saying last week. He said, don't just go based on the host name of what you see. Find what's the CNAME is pointing to, what the subdomain is pointing to, and run it on that. So we can also incorporate that. Because Daffy told him that. That's funny. That's what you got to come on here, dude. You got to show us your gangsta ass Yahoo knowledge. The bin host name was definitely something that you also tweeted out years ago, I think. It's a good thing I disabled Nightbot. You would have been getting another ban again for using caps. Alright, let's see. Oh, so report. Oh, why did I fucking cancel it? Whoosah. Alright. So, going to... I think this is what we're heading, right? Before I lost my shit almost. Alright, so report is... Is it report or reports? Report goes to Okta. So we know something's juicy behind it. Interesting stuff. And there's an MX and EC. I'm going to hit MX and EC soon. What about Recon on GitHub? I said Git Grabber. It's alright. It's not a bad tool. Yeah, it's a good tool, but it's hard to use it because it requires a lot of API keys, and I made a shell account just for it, but not my cup of tea, to be honest. This Sherpa thing is really interesting. Can we ping this? We can't ping this, okay. TW1. After the research complete task, you start visiting all the directories? No, I look at the ones that look interesting to me. Like, none of these are going to be looked at, I don't think, unless something is on ADM. But, like, depends. Like, I would hit something like MX, see what's behind it. But you don't have to hit MX or any of that. You can recursively have it do all this for you through directory search. Like, you want to find what looks interesting and just go after that. Like, there's no way of telling what any of these do unless I visit them, right? You can also, like, automate some task around it, but this is coming back as 404. I don't know why it's getting flagged as 200 or 301. Let's hit a report just to see if anything comes up, and then I'm going to leave this alone afterwards. And I'm only doing HTML because I want to just get a baseline of what's there. If I was to really be not doing that. If I was really hacking on this, it would be HTML, PHP, maybe JSP and .do, but for now I'm just doing HTML to get a quick folder, what's on there on the folders. I can do both of those, but I feel like I'm in a plateau where I don't know whether to continuously grind tutorials or attack stuff and feel confused. Attack stuff and feel confused. That's my choice. If you learn some stuff, go and try and mimic it at least. So if you learn XSS and you're pretty confident about what XSS means, I would say go in a while and be confused until you find an XSS that makes sense to you. Alright, this is still going strong. Interesting stuff that it's finding. I wonder what this is. It's pointing to DQ. I mean, yeah, the data. Let's see if it opens. It's doing some stuff. We'll come back to it. Let's get going through censys. I had someone asking me how I use censys, so that's kind of why I want to go through it a little bit. They're not notorious for having tons of wounds, but I think I had a very good luck with the Hong Kong sites a while ago. I found a ton of stuff there. I think a lot of people get afraid of looking at foreign language websites because they don't understand it. And because I don't understand it, I don't go look at it. I go look at it and just right click and Google Translate it with Chrome. There's a lot of stuff on Core that I'm not interested in. Let's have a look at this. So it looks like YGrid has some stuff. Maybe that's what FD can look for. Alright. Let's see what FD finds. Oh, that'll be fun. I haven't looked at any of the Taiwan sites behind the logins at all. Some really weird stuff that it's finding, but let's probe over it just to see if it finds anything. Alright, nothing again on... Wow, it's been a dry day today, hasn't it? Targeting inside data. Test targeting at Yahoo DNS. Okay. Interesting. Alright. I think I'm completely using this wrong, so I'm really juiced about seeing what Shavs has to say about this tool, or how to use it properly, hopefully. Anyone is still going strong. Holy crap, still finding some stuff. And we're not even halfway. We're on the letter O for now. There's a lot to be looked at. Okay. So this is the data search that I don't need. Let's see if we find any UAT sites on here while we... Okay, hold on. Actually, I'm going to close this out and go here. There we go. So YGrid has some stuff, but we can't access any of it. Let's keep going through censys. I know this is kind of slow, but it's part of the process, honestly. You can automate all of this, but with how limited censys is, I don't want to automate it. Just because I feel like if I automate it, then it's gonna just hit my cap a lot faster than me going through it manually. A little bit this way. There we go. Crap. All right. Not bad. VCG has some stuff. So let's just do the same thing as we did earlier. FD. Actually, let me remove YGrid. And then let's do what else we have. Let's see. Let's do it. Screw it. FD. VCG. It's gonna find a ton of stuff, but it just comes down to if we can actually find anything on probing it. It's gotta hit something, right? I mean, every domain we're hitting so far, it's repeating the same thing and not giving us any domains. FD is find domain. Alright, I'm going to switch to Amass really quick just to see what Amass finds on the same thing. But AM is what I meant to do, not Amass. There we go. Okay, let's see what this finds. I feel like Amass is going to give us some stuff that might be very useful to us. Let's see where this goes. Why is it playing my video on the side, which is not what I'm playing? Windows is a very weird place. Would say bug hunters go for web apps and pen testers go for company infrastructure. I would say bug hunters go for both, to be honest. Hey Santiago, how's it going? Again, FD is find domain. Wow, really? This is really getting me angry. Well, not angry, it's really annoying the crap out of me because nothing probes. There's a lot of domains in here, and some of it should probe. No, don't do it 600. There we go. Because I can? I don't know, it's just something different to try. Wow, okay, so nothing from VCG for sure. Okay, at least we know that much. That's okay, we're gonna find something cool in a sec. Let me make sure I'm not late for meeting Shubs. Nope, we got some more time. Travel is a big one too. We should hit travel. Let's see. I bet you travel has some really cool stuff on it. Travel.yahoo.com. Or news. Let's do travel first and then we'll hit news in a sec. Let's see what news comes up with FD. FD seems to be very quick to pull stuff, but I feel like Amass finds more. So it comes down to if you want more stuff or you know, if you want to find more or, you know, faster. Let's play some jazz hop. Okay, so let's do news.yahoo.com and probe. But the thing that I'm afraid of probing on is, ooh, this is interesting. It's probably not gonna open now. It's not gonna open. That would have been really fun to hit. The AWS stuff didn't come back, did it? Nope. This would have been really fun to hit. AWS dev. Let's see if we can find more AWS stuff on here. The volume's let's see right here. Is this too loud of a? Is that too loud for you guys? We need an emote from Naham's face, please. Make it, man, make it. Someone make it quick. So I wanted to look for AWS stuff because like News brought up some stuff, but if we look at it, this is something that, hold on. This one is something we haven't looked at before. One sec. Alright, hopefully this fixes a little bit of it. Yeah, it's playing through speakers. I didn't get to set up my audio tools yet. This is interesting too. So let's do this, and then ooh, not a whole lot, but what is FP? Have you ever received a small reward with vulnerabilities that have a big impact on the business and technical side? Depends. Depends on the company. Depends on what the impact was. It depends on a lot of stuff. Depends on what you found, honestly. Did you find PIIs, for example? Is it more for you to do say search manually? I couldn't use your line you have in your GitHub bash profile. Yes and no. I mean, I should be automating it. I'm just not automating it so I can show why I'm doing the things that I am. So the things that I do on my stream is sometimes different. Sometimes I'm all about automation. Sometimes I'm just more like, okay, I want to see what looks interesting before I start looking at it more. Ideally, if you automate it, it would be a lot easier, you know? Take.yahoo.com is another one. Let's see what this finds. So travel has some stuff on it, but nothing looks out of the ordinary. Affiliates, API proxy house. You automate everything, you will miss things you didn't know you should be looking out for. Oh, Tom's here. Hey, Tom. How do you handle things and stay disciplined? Next week, I'll have a solution to that. I'm going to be doing on Ubuntu. Right now, I'm doing Windows, unfortunately, because I'm stuck. But eventually, I'll be doing on Ubuntu. Oh, what a crap final. Is it over already? Admin.tech. No admin. Bummer. This is still going very strong. 4 hours left. This anyone is going really good. Find some really interesting stuff. Let's try this really quick. Oh. So what I did was I looked for prod to see where it all comes up. And it comes up a lot in data and what else? Data a lot. And symbol is another one. Omega is a really good one apparently. Alright, let's do this. So travel, I was hoping admin would come up, but it didn't, so screw it. Let's remove anything that has an underline in it. Oh no, I need to keep that, I think. Hold on. So data is the one that we do need. Okay. Some of these have garbage in them, like this one. And this one has some garbage in it. Nope, we're not doing that. Just cleaning up a little bit really quick before I move on. Okay, we'll leave anyone for now. So I wanted to look at this one more time. Let's see what Amass is going to find on this subdomain particularly. Recon is the very first step. For a company like Yahoo, absolutely. But, I mean, depends. Sometimes also recon doesn't have to be subdomain enumeration. It could be content discovery through JS files, right? Internal Marvel 01. And, oh, that's not pro, so let's give it a time. Recon is for finding places to hack, yeah. That is correct and accurate. If you don't do recon, you can't understand scope and have a good global view of assets. Yeah, but again, like, you don't have to spend hours on recon. If you don't want to do what I'm doing, you can do something really simple. Run sublister if you're looking for subdomains. What do I do every day? I work 9 to 5, and then after 5, I either hack or play video games or hang out with my wife. Either one, you know. Okay, let's see what these have in them. None of the Marvel stuff came back. Not redirects, but I want to see if it goes anywhere else. I have a vlog of the PC we built, but I don't think it's going to be that long. I'm going to try and make it soon. I don't even have Premiere on this PC yet. I just threw everything together just so I can get on and make it for today's stream. It's not legal tools. None of these loaded, which is weird. Omega. Tons of Omega. One of my favorite books. These are my favorite books. These are the books that I've collected for InfoSec so far. I just switched to doing them mostly on Audibles, but I have to read this one. I haven't started it yet. This one I just got assigned by Pete. This one is pretty old. This one I never got to finish, but it was pretty good. This is absolutely awesome to read if you're new. This is something that helped me understand the defensive side of things. If you're trying to get a job in InfoSec, especially AppSec, you gotta read this book. If you want to do automation with Ruby, it's a pretty good one. This is just Kali stuff. This is a really good book for red teamers, especially. This is not a book. Read the fucking manual, or read the freaking manual, whatever you want to call it. Whether it's called the Red Team Field Manual. Pretty good stuff if you're looking for a quick syntax. Have you read The Tangled Web? No. Is it good? Should I? So even though this went to Yahoo.com, it still gave us some stuff. So there was a little bit of hope there. So internal comes up in assistant somewhere, which will let FD or Amass have it for now. Assistant.yahoo.com. Check out this one. Next. Internet has a Twitter for it. So I don't think we're going to have this done in time for, I think not on anyone at least. Anyone is a pretty big scope for it. I gotta find something smaller to run on here. Let's see if this brings anything up really quick. How and stored accesses can be out of scope. I'm not sure. Maybe they know about it. Maybe they have. Maybe they're rolling out a fix that completely gets rid of everything. Or it could be that that domain's out of scope. I would look at their scope and see what it says. Today has been a very slow grind on finding stuff on Yahoo, unfortunately. Product Central. I feel like this is gonna get flagged with my music playing right now. I gotta change this. I don't want this to be on here. I'm gonna get flagged with copyright galore. So let's move away from this. There's 202 songs on here, and I don't know why I keep going to copyrighted material. Alright, there's been a very weird day today with Yahoo. And Symbol has a lot of stuff, but I'm going to quickly move away from it. Data infra. Alright, that's not bad. ASD.mail. Let's look at this really quickly. Okay, so this has some stuff on it, looks like. Let's feed it into this. Oh wow, it did find some stuff on Assistant. Let's look at it really quick. Oh wow, look, it's done. Anyone is completely done. But there's a lot of garbage stuff on here. Okay, let me focus on one thing at a time. Let's leave this alone. Left these alone. Okay, let's go back to... Thank you for the follow. Let's do another Amass on fin.yahoo.com, see what we find. Thank you for the follow, John Hong. Thank you. Backyard is another one for Yahoo to keep in mind. I wonder if I search for back, we don't find anything. Let's do back. Oh. Is it gonna give us something? Let's see. It's doing something. Alright, the stuff on Fin, I don't think it really worked. Nothing came back on probing it. Wow, nothing actually came up. That's interesting. And if you look for backend stuff, a lot of it comes on Corp and Paranoids. ADX has some of them, but we better look at ADX. Whoops. Weird. A lot of the stuff that we see is either on ADX. I know we did ADX before, but I'm going to do it one more time. Yeah, I am on the Windows setup now until I get Ubuntu up and running. So we looked at backend just to see if we can find more stuff for it, but it looks like everything on backend goes to paranoids and core and ADX. So that's why I hit ADX for now. Hold on one sec, chat. One sec. I'm not AFKing, I'm just gonna have to look at something really quick. Specs, I will put them on. I'll put them on soon. I'll show you guys what it looks like. Hold on, one sec. I can actually do this. One sec. Where is it? Ready? I know it's kind of weird to show it with the webcam like this, but it looks pretty dope. Donut hooked me up with 32 gigs of RAM for my birthday, so thank you for that. I haven't really done a whole lot with it just yet, but let's go this way. I feel bad with people that are gonna watch this after I put it on YouTube with how much I've moved my webcam around. Yeah, see, this is what I mean. Like, you run it on ADX, ADX doesn't find anything. There's nothing on ADX really, even though it comes up with a ton of stuff. This, on the other hand, is pretty cool. I want to look at these really quick. Naham is now a Bitcoin miner. I wish. What's up, Bitcode? How's it going? 29. I don't know. I only played a couple rounds of PUBG because I was so excited. I didn't check out anything at all. See you later, Bug Butt. Wow, this is gonna do us like this today. Let's see what we find on Yahoo DNS. You know what? Screw it. Let's do this. We're gonna hit G03 on Yahoo DNS on here. We're gonna step our game up. I've been saying everyone should step their game up, including myself. So let's see. Let's just go to Yahoo DNS and see what we find. What was the other one on Yahoo DNS? So Yahoo DNS, so far we only have G03 from it. But I'm gonna do this and see if we find anything that says admin on Yahoo DNS. Oh, come on. Hey chat, I'm gonna turn off my music really quickly to test something out. Tell me if you guys hear the music. I just turned it off. Tell me if you still hear the music. And tell me how loud it is. I don't hear the music right now. But now I turn it on within, so no music at all. Wow, interesting. Do you hear it now? Thank you for the follow. Okay, there's music. Cool. Does it sound good? Because this is what I'm gonna do to loop in Shubs. So if it does sound good, let me know. This is probably going to be what I'm going to use to have Shubs on. It's a little loud, perfect. But if Shubs is talking, then it wouldn't be too loud because you guys want to hear him loud and clear, right? I gotta find my headphone cable somewhere. Because if I don't have headphones, then I won't be able to hear him. It's perfect. Awesome. Where are my headphone cables? No, I'm not using. There's so much cables behind this laptop right now. I gotta really quickly find my headphones for Shabs because I feel like this setup is better to hear him out. I just have to find a way to hear him out. That's all I gotta do. Let me think. Won't need mine from now on. Cool. At least you guys have some music coming in. I hear nothing at all. I just put everything in the wrong places. I have no microphone. I have no headphone at all. And I don't think I can interview someone without actually listening to them. Screw it. I think you've said it before. Payoneer is a team or an event. It's a team that it's a security team at Yahoo or Verizon Media now. Oh, nothing on here either. Cool. Alright, Shub is going to meet me in 3 minutes. I'm going to be right back and get some drinks. So give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Yo, Shubs, how's it going, man? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you?
Awesome. Give me one moment. I'm going to pull you through. I have to switch my scenes on my stream. Let's keep it that way. Screw it. There we go. How's it going, my friend?
Yeah, pretty good. It's 4:50 a.m. here in Melbourne, Australia, so it's pretty early in the morning. But pretty excited to be on the stream with you, man. How's it going with you? I've just been watching the stream for the last 30 minutes or so. It's been pretty cool. I've been really appreciating the work you've been doing with search transparency and Altdns.
Well, thank you for joining, man. I know it's hold on one second. Can you guys hear him now? Everyone's saying they can't hear you. They lost audio, they say.
Can you guys hear me now?
A little bit more. Hold on. A little bit more. All right. Sorry, I just got a new rig, and I want to make sure people can hear you. Can you hear him now?
Is it better now?
No, I think it's on my end. I have to bust you like all the way up through the roof with the sound. That's perfect. All right, cool. Thank you again for joining me at 4 o'clock in the morning for you. Is it early or is it late?
It's pretty early, but yeah, no, I'm more than welcome. I love being on streams like this, so happy to be on, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you so much for all the nice words about the stream. The whole point is like, people think of us as like all the hackers, like people that just sit on a terminal, that just run scripts, that just spits out bugs, right? And I'm sitting here for 3 hours showing like, oh, like I'm looking at manual data, like look at all this thing that I have to go through every day just to get that one subdomain that's going to hit the jackpot eventually, right? So I want to I want to make it normal so people understand, like people like you and me, I'm not on the same level as you with the beast that you are, but in the same sense, like the whole methodology and like, hacking is just, it's all thinking outside the box. It's creativeness.
No, I 100% agree. And like even watching you go through censys earlier, that's still one of the things that I love doing myself, just because it's something where like you can really pick up patterns on how certain like attack surfaces look like. You can quickly dig down and understand certain things and kind of get to where you want to be. But you're right, it's like a whole process of trial and error. There's a whole methodology you got to go through. There's like steps you got to kind of remember. But for me, it's often, I think I watched Franz Rosen's talk,
Right.
your interview with him previously, and he said that his recon and his hacking kind of blend into one, and that's very much so similar for me as well. I find that even watching your streams, I can see you do recon hacking. So yeah, I find that a lot of really good hackers have this kind of ability to quickly switch between looking for new attack surface and then hacking that attack surface, if you know what I mean.
You keep going back and forth, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, speaking of Franz Rosen, earlier in the stream, I pulled up your GitHub page, and on GitHub, I'm going to actually quickly pull it up and show everyone. You have two. Let me see if I can find you properly. Nope. I'm not good with computers. All right, so you have two tools, which we'll get to Altdns later, and there's also Common Speak. And looking at Common Speak, it looks like you have 4 people credited. Yourself, Nafi, who is completely questioning on you in my chat, if you're looking at it. And you also have Matthias and Casper. How did you guys, why did you guys come up with Common Speak? And how did you come up with the idea of Common Speak?
So I'm pretty sure that we were having beers and it was just something where I really thought that it was going to change how we do content discovery, and I think Common Speak today still has a little bit of work left to get to that stage. But at the same time, when we were having beers, we were just like, damn, this could actually really work. And at the time, we had bought this domain pentester.io. I think Nafi and I had snagged that.
It's a good domain, dude.
It was something that it's a good domain. We were really happy about that. So we wanted to use that as a blog. And I think Casper and Matthias were visiting as well when we were living in Poland. So we got to we hacked quite a bit sometime then. And Nafi and I used to hack quite a lot back then as well. So I thought, why not release this tool? And we could kind of commit to it and commit more to that tool over time. But what ended up happening is Common Speak 1, it was written in Bash, and neither of us really had much time after we originally came up with the concept and wrote the blog post. And then sometime later, I did end up releasing Common Speak 2, which is on the Asset Note GitHub page.
So for you, like, I want to try and get like some answers for someone who's actually using your tools, coming from the person who's authoring the tool, right?
Yeah.
Where do you see? Thank you for the sub, Navi. Where do you see common speak being used? Do you think about common speak being used both for asset discovery and content discovery, or is it better to use for one or the other?
Well, that's a pretty good question. But there's a bunch of different there's a bunch of different data sets that can be utilized for both content discovery and subdomain discovery. So there's the HTTP archive data set, which will give you both data based on like the subdomains if you want to extract that, or the paths and the extensions and stuff like that as well. In Common Speak 2, I do have some of these integrated inside there. And really the idea in Common Speak 2 is once we get this data from Bigquery, we want to kind of filter it out even further. So for example, one of the really good ideas that I think in Common Speak 2 that I didn't get to discuss more was the idea that we can extract routes from Bigquery. So for example, let's say, for example, Rails. Rails has a really deterministic way of kind of defining routes.
Right.
And you can create a query in BigQuery that searches all of GitHub and extracts all of these routes. But now that you've got these routes, you still have the problem of kind of contextualizing them. A lot of these routes are going to have things like integers that you need to still place there. Like, for example, it could have :ID, and you need to replace that with an integer in order to make it a valid path.
Right.
The concept behind this was that these days, to how we do content discovery. Seen this challenge recently where, in Node.js especially, and you're trying to brute force content and you're trying to find out something that could be 5 layers deep. But the only way to get that application to respond is by giving the layers deep. So in that scenario, how do you find that?
Yeah, I think I haven't gotten to use Common Speak yet. This is something that is going to be used eventually throughout the Recon Sundays. But I've seen a lot of people, like, one of the first things that people started talking about is Common Speak. As soon as it said, Shubs is going to join me, I was like, Common Speak. And the other one is obviously your Altdns, which we are trying to run right now. And it is doing some stuff on data.yahoo.com, and it has 35,000 results. So 3.5 hours of work left. But what comes down to Altdns is, would you consider people to use Altdns on top of their recon? Or would you consider them a combination of using Common Speak to do recon to feed it into Altdns? What would be the proper way of using Altdns? What was your vision when you wrote Altdns?
Okay, my vision was really when Nafi had a lot more data than I did, and he had a lot more when it came to this one particular target. And one thing that I kind of noticed when looking at this target, and something that he mentioned to me as well, was it'd be really cool. And he just mentioned this offhand at some point. And then a couple months later, I was like, all right, well, let's actually see if we can create this concept and let's see how we can use it. I normally recommend people to use Altdns just to generate the list of words and then feed it into your favorite DNS brute forcer. And that's what Franz was saying the previous time as well, is that he generates the words with Altdns and he feeds it into mass DNS as a word list. That way you can ensure that the resolving is happening really fast. The resolver that's included with Altdns, it's kind of just there for convenience. If it is a target you quickly want to take a look at, it's definitely something you can use, and it's not recommend using something like mass DNS when it comes to the output from Altdns. And also when it comes to combining Common Speak and Altdns, it's definitely something that you can do, but often I find that Altdns is better when you configure it specifically for the target you're going after. So if you've noticed that there's a couple of words or there's some words inside that target that, once you've looked at all the DNS records that you've noticed this pattern, you add that word to your list. And that's very much so what Nafi and I did as well when we were going after this particular private program in HackerOne early on in the days of our careers in bug bounties.
I think I know what program you're talking about. I'm pretty sure I know. I've seen you guys' name at the top of that leaderboard for a while. And I think no one's going to be touching you guys anytime soon. So Altdns, I've used it a couple of times. Really, really cool. I think it makes life easier to find those different permutations. especially when you're going after like those backends, admins, and all those internal toolings. I think that's the valuable thing for me as a hacker is finding those things without having to write a bash script that does it, right? That's a pain in the ass to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree. That's why we made it. And there's actually some interesting history to Altdns, and I've been trying to dig it up for the last couple of days. But there was a research paper that I read when I was creating Altdns, and it was actually someone who had come up with the idea of alterations and mutations in subdomains way before me. And he had written this paper. I've been trying to find it. I haven't found it yet, but if I do, I'll definitely send it over. But this paper, what he had found in particular, what I found most interesting is there's definitely a point where it caps out. Like you can provide as many words as you want and as many subdomains and input, but there's going to be a point where the data you're providing is no longer going to actually help you find more subdomains. And he found that through his research as well when he tried it on multiple different domains in the Alexa Top 1000. So I thought that was really interesting. I just thought I'd mention that. But if I do find it, I'll definitely send it to you.
Yeah, definitely. Link me out. I would love to read it. It's cool to see like the backstories and like the inspiration of like things that cause people to do the things they do, like especially writing a tool and releasing it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So I usually don't start with grilling my guests with their tools, but your tool has been a huge topic of discussion today. Let's do some basic QA. How long have you been hacking for?
Oh, damn. That's almost.
That's a hard question.
It's been a while. I would say almost 10 years now, give or take.
And how long have you been doing bug bounties for out of that 10 year?
Oh, maybe 9 of those 10, actually, surprisingly. I was actually thinking about this the other day. It's surprising now that there's actually a generation of people that have gotten into information security and hacking through bug bounties. Oh. And I think that Nafi and I were kind of some of the first people to kind of get into bug bounties that way, because we both grew up together kind of in the sense of hacking and everything else. We worked a lot. I've known him since we were 13 or so, so it's been a very long time. And he got into bug bounties first, and I got into it second. But that kind of propelled our careers in InfoSec. So it was really interesting. And yeah, just on that point, it's been almost 10 years. It's been a long time, man.
Let me guess. First bug bounty exposure was either Yahoo or Google, I assume.
For me, it was PayPal. I think
PayPal.
for Nafi, it might have been PayPal or Yahoo. I'm not sure. But yeah, he definitely did a lot of work on Yahoo when it first came out, and when it did, I was like, no way, they're actually going to pay you, and I wasn't even sure that it was a legit thing, especially after Yahoo had paid some dude with just swags a year ago. Then it kind of corrected their act by getting onto HackerOne and starting paying huge amounts.
I remember
I remember when. yeah, totally. And I remember when Nafi just switched, he just found so many bugs. He's just finding bugs and bugs and bugs, and I was like, damn, this is really good. And then he found this one other private program, and that's when I finally got involved, when he introduced me to that one.
Yeah, I remember. Remember Nafi's name wasn't Nafi back in those days. I won't drop his original name. I'll let him talk about it when he comes on here. But I remember not seeing Nafi or not Nafi. I used to see some different names for Nafi himself. But speaking of hacking, I ask all my guests this question because, again, Sundays are usually about doing recon and how recon works. So what does recon mean to you?
Recon to me means maximizing the attack surface and doing both breadth and depth. So like something I've kind of learned recently is, recon is not just doing the breadth, which means finding all the assets and finding everything that a domain might have or a company might own on the internet, or the IPs or the assets. It's more so even just going deep into the applications as well. So for me, recon means understanding what the attack surface is holistically. And that can be pretty hard sometimes, but often that means you have to expand a lot of the ways that you kind of find these things. Like often, for companies, they might have subsidiaries you might need to dig into, and that might be the breadth component. But when I talk about depth, it's like really digging into the JavaScript and understanding the routes for each application, the controllers, and how the services work, potentially even recreating them. So for me, recon is kind of understanding your attack surface holistically.
You said something about JavaScript, and that's something like I want to stress out. And every time a guest brings it up, I kind of like zoom in on it a little bit. Why is it important to look at JavaScript files?
Oh, okay. Well, JavaScript files are essentially the building blocks of every application you see these days, and every modern application you see these days. And it would be really like if you have the opportunity to look at the main JavaScript file, then as a hacker, I think that's one of the best things you can be looking at, because from that file alone, you can recreate so much. You can recreate the functionalities of the application, how the application interacts with the user, and how that happens, vice versa, and also all the different HTTP calls that might be being made. And that's probably the most important part with JavaScript files is understanding all the different AJAX and different HTTP requests that are being made through the JavaScript. Because sometimes you might not actually be able to log into an application, but looking at the JavaScript file might give you all the necessary like information and routes and API routes.
The API itself is gold, right? Like getting all the
Absolutely.
API routes with an admin and figure out how it works. Yeah. Besides finding those API routes, what are some other crazy shit you found in a JavaScript file?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, lots of times we find secrets these days because modern JavaScript development has progressed to this point where, including certain files like JSON files sometimes get accidentally included in Webpack processes and Webpack dev processes. And in that scenario, some JavaScript files I've found where, straight up they've had the AWS keys at the bottom of the JavaScript file. And it's just been so shocking because you look at these keys and one time in particular for a bounty that I won't name because that's not disclosed yet, but in particular we found this AWS keys at the bottom and we tried them and they didn't seem to have any significant permissions from anything that we could tell. But we submitted it into this bounty and we said, look, we found these credentials at the bottom of this JavaScript file. This is really odd. We think that they're valid, but we don't really know what they can do. And they ended up paying a 10K bounty for that. They investigated on their end, and they did quite a lot of work to understand what the impact was. And at the end, they worked out that you could actually sign certain CloudFront URLs and access certain personal information through these keys. So it was a pretty big deal on their end, and they ended up paying that much. So yeah, definitely. And JavaScript files are really important when it comes to recon, even for that fact, just to look at all the secrets potentially if they're in there.
Do you automate a lot of your work for JavaScript files? Do you have some sort of a tool that pretty much looks for certain keywords or pulls routes for you? Or do you like to do it manually? Or do you do both?
Yeah, I do both. There are lots of tool sets and stuff that we've built here at Asinone, and really it's more the team that's kind of taken it on and done a lot of really cool work with that. But and that's the automation side. But when it comes to the manual side, I really do like looking at it because as much as we can use automation like regex and so forth to pull these routes out, we're still trying to get to, I think automation still needs to get a bit more mature to get to the point where we can really understand a lot more about these requests being made through JavaScript for all these different frameworks. And we're slowly getting there, but really when it comes to a lot of applications, for example, if it's a React app or an Angular app, that's really easy to automate to understand how the HTTP calls are being made. And that stuff, that's definitely stuff that I recommend doing, because these days, if you know that an attack surface is regularly spinning up React applications, you can do a lot of really cool work with that. But yeah, no, I recommend both. Automation, I have seen some good tools around, which just use basically a regex. It's nothing too complicated, and that should start you off pretty well. I don't think that for the initial stages of getting into JavaScript recon, anything complex is needed. It's just really understanding these routes and how it all works together. So maybe you can add that to your recon workflow. There's a couple of tools that you can search up. I don't know, Ben, is there anything you've made that does this, or is there anything you can recommend?
I've made something. I didn't make it, actually. It was just an idea we shot in the dark with Zayed, Brett. He actually wrote JS parser because we were hacking on Airbnb for a while, and we were just tired of pulling JavaScript files. So he got he got very sick and tired one day. It's something that we haven't released. He automated the entire thing for Airbnb. We just hit /airbnb.py, and it pulls every JavaScript file that it has, because he has a manifest already. So he hits a manifest, pulls the JS files, and just completely automates and diffs them. And diffing them is another thing to do, right? Because you can see what's new released since the last time you did recon. but it takes a lot of time. But honestly, there's nothing to stop me from saying I also do the JavaScript part manually, because you can't always rely on automation. You hit it on the nail. It's not mature enough to rely on automation. But again, if you're doing massive scans and you want to automate it, perfect, right? But if you're hitting some single domain, it's a single app, then looking at every JavaScript file on every page, or everything that has user interaction at least, and finding those hidden functionalities, it's golden. I think it's a gold mine of tools that you can find.
Yeah, I agree, and you hit on an important point as well on change detection, is and the diffing part as well. The Airbnb stuff you guys did, I thought was really impressive, because you guys understood an attack surface, and you said, okay, well, what are the characteristics? You know that the JavaScript files are always going to be in this location. Based off that, you're going to be doing this analysis, and that automation is really valuable when you've kind of understood an attack surface and you've started automating things like that. I think that's awesome, and that's kind of, I think that's why you guys were super successful as well in Airbnb. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, the stuff that I can talk about, we found some really cool stuff because of it. We found the SSRF. The SSRF was where Brett and I went, okay, like, we need to do this more. And when we put it out, people were just like, oh, that's interesting, because we didn't even think about, like, we thought we were behind with this shit. But it turned out, no, nobody is going to the depth of, like, us being desperate to the point that just looking at the user interface isn't enough anymore. We want to find stuff that's being released, and that SSRF thing that we hit was just released like a week ago. It wasn't even fully developed, I don't think, and we just hit it and we found it. And then there's also things that we found, we're like, what the fuck does this do? But then we couldn't figure it out, and then it would pop onto the UI a week later. It'd be like, oh, that's what this thing does. And it helped us with the next automation, right? So those are definitely, like, JavaScript was where it really, really helped us understand how the application worked. And also, like, instead of just monitoring the website manually, having some sort of automation in the background while we do the dirty work on our own. Speaking of automation and targets, for let's say example, Yahoo.com has never run a bug bounty program, right? You just get invited today to hack on Yahoo.com. What are your I know this is a very loaded question, but this would TLDR of what is that recon process for you to find domains? What are some things that you do on your recon when it comes down to finding subdomains and assets and everything else?
Okay, well, in the automated sense, I normally add it into Astronaut, which is kind of the solution that I've been building for the last couple of years, and it does a lot of the recon work for me these days. But when it comes to the manual sense, which I think will be more useful to the people tuning in right now, sometimes I do end up looking at attack surfaces manually, and, like, honestly, it's not that far off to the work that you do, Ben, with like the stuff on censys that you look at, and everything that you do in your workflows with the automation you've got set up in your local terminal and on your VPSs as well. To kind of say the special stuff that I do potentially when it comes to reconnaissance, I take a lot of time to understand patterns. And that's something that I highly recommend for a lot of people. It's very abstract, this advice, but for example, there's some things that I even do when it comes to reading my recon data, which is I have all of my data where it goes. The subdomain is on the very left-hand side, and it then scrolls out to the rest of the records, so that I can easily scan through and understand exactly the relationship from the subdomain to the C names, the A records. And when you have this holistic view, it helps quite a lot to understand patterns as well. I know that's quite abstract advice, but I think that it definitely does help. When it comes to my manual analysis as well, there's a lot of time that we've kind of spent at Astronaut even, where we've kind of understood that certain assets have a certain, like, I guess to say, a certain smell to them. Sometimes they just stink. Like, sometimes you know that an asset is absolutely screwed the second you see it, and the second you start playing around with it for a little bit,
you get that feeling, right?
You get that feeling. It's that instinct, and that's something that I really recommend people try and develop, because, you know, the more experience you get in hacking, I think you develop that. And that's something where I think there's a certain point, there's a certain level of experience that you get to when you're hacking, where it's just like, okay, you know that this host is particularly dodgy, or you have reason to believe that you're going to find a critical bug in it. And that's really important, getting that instinct and getting that understanding of, okay, am I wasting my time here? spending the next 6 hours, or should I be moving on? Because you can fall into the trap of spending too much time on a particular asset quite easily, or a particular host or whatever else. So yeah, that's definitely
I want to
definitely
hit on something you said, the instinct part. As like, I cannot stress this enough. Instinct comes with experience, and I love that you said that. It's not like you can overnight create that feeling of, oh, this screams vulnerable to me, and it doesn't come overnight. You have to put in the time. I'm sure you have spent hours, if not days or weeks, not finding bugs, but gaining that experience of saying, oh, okay, next time I see this thing, I know it's not vulnerable, or I know how to exploit it potentially because it worked on other programs, right? So I want to I want to make sure I highlight that for everybody watching this or watching it after it goes on YouTube, like, it comes with experience. You have to put in the time. All of us put in that time. I put in 6 months before I find my first oh shit moment. Like, oh shit, I found a really cool bug, right? It takes out, some for some people it doesn't take that long, depending on your experience, but it's instinct and experience is a huge part of bug bounties. And I love that you brought that up. But going back to the original question of recon, so you said it's similar to mine. So I assume you find assets, you screenshot them, you monitor them, and then you pull some content discovery stuff to directory brute force and some other automation, I assume?
Yeah, so the screenshots, that part right now I actually skip. And there's a reason why I skip it. It's because I've actually, and something that even quite a few people I've been talking to have noticed is that sometimes with screenshots they can be quite good, but they can also be information overload and you can miss things, especially when it comes to redirects and whatever else. But right now, screenshots aren't a part of my methodology.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that screenshots are good, but at the same time, when it comes to looking at these assets, I try my best to kind of filter out the assets that I'm not interested in as early as possible, with as many characteristics as I can understand at first glance. Something that I recommend, there's a friend of mine, Andrew Horton. He's been working on a tool called WhatWeb for the last, I don't know, almost 6-7 years. But
Wow.
it's a really good tool. It's written in Ruby. You can run it across an attack surface quite easily, and you can see some of the characteristics quite easily. So I recommend that as well when it comes to really understanding an attack surface once you have a list of subdomains. But yeah, I think a big part of kind of getting into recon is one, understanding what you're really looking for. So I know today in your stream you're looking through certain Yahoo subdomains, and you're really digging into BF1 or GQ1 or whatever else, and you're starting to understand more of the attack surface and which ones to look for. And I think that's actually something that's really important. I could have spent a lot of time looking at some of the core Yahoo assets, or I could dig into something more. I could find something more particular. So yeah, there's that as well. My recon workflow is pretty much like you described. Once I've got my recon data, a lot of my time is gone into filtering out into what is important and then putting it into a content discovery workflow, similar to what you do. So yeah, it is still quite similar to your workflow, and I think that a lot of the hackers I've spoken to, it's more or less the same, and they've got kind of custom tools here and there, but for the most part, it's the same kind of workflow.
Yeah, I think the workflow, and this is something I try to focus on, is the workflow is always the same, but the way you parse and you go to the next level of each of those recon steps is up to you.
Yeah.
And it should be
Totally.
up to you. You shouldn't go and copy my style. I shouldn't go and copy your style. I should figure out the stuff that you find that's helping you and developing it in my way and putting it into my methodology. What was the tool again? You said it was WhatWeb by Urban Adventure. Someone posted it.
Yep, that's the one.
Thank you, Aramani. I'm going to copy this link really quickly. WhatWeb. I'm going to put this down. Maybe we can give it a try next week. Cool.
It's pretty decent. I'm a big fan of it. You can start filtering out things that you don't like. It's definitely useful for some attack surfaces, but I know that people like Nafi still very insistent on Nmap, and that's worked very well for him as well.
Yeah, the Nmap thing still blows my mind. He always comes up and says, "No."
He finds the most critical bugs with it, so it definitely works for him.
That is very, very awesome, dude. That is mind blowing. Cool. So we talked about your recon. How you do recon, which is really valuable to see, just skipping screenshots and your perspective on screenshots makes sense. You get discouraged when you see some of those screenshots. You don't go look at it because the screenshots don't look interesting enough, right?
Sometimes it's just hard to filter it all out. Sometimes it's just information overload. It depends, though. It's very subjective. I know that people have their own recon flows, and yeah, like I really like the point you brought up too, where you get to decide what you want to do in recon, and that's actually what makes this whole process so special, and that's why we find different vulnerabilities, I reckon, as well. Like if we start copying each other's recon styles, we're going to find the same bugs. We're going to start clashing. It's not going to really work. It's not really ideal, and I don't think that it's necessarily the best way to hack either. Whereas, like, you know, once I spent some time with Nafi, and he had kind of shown me a lot of the recon methodologies that he had come up with. It was like, damn, I really started to understand the depth that you need to go to really get to what you want to get to in an application or an asset, and sometimes how blind you really are.
Right.
and it was really, really, really shocking. Just that revelation is like, wow, damn, we're so fucking blind when we look at all these assets, when we look at all this stuff, and we're coming into this completely black box. Like, we don't have any real information for all these subdomains and all these assets, so we've got to use everything we can to understand how we filter out the things that don't really matter.
It is. It's also not an easy task, right? Especially with like a company the size of Yahoo, when there's like 800 subdomain that come up on like BF1, and having to like go through all of that, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and you kind of even need like a photographic memory at some point. Like I'm sure you've had this, Ben, where you've looked at an attack surface so much, and you just know every single subdomain to the point where when you look at the subdomains again, you know exactly what's new and what's yeah, and that's something that, you know, Nafi's really good at as well with Yahoo, and I think that's nuts because Yahoo's huge, and Yahoo, I know that we spent a lot of time when Nafi used to live at my place, we used to look at Yahoo's attack surface quite a lot, and it actually took quite some time. Like, Yahoo is quite complex. It's a beast. There's so many DNS records everywhere, and it takes so long. So don't get discouraged if you don't find much on Yahoo immediately, because you know it's so difficult, right? Because it's sometimes to initially find that host, but once you find that one host that, you know, is just completely vulnerable, you just dig into it even further, and you end up getting an RC or something super critical. But yeah, no. The other thing, I guess, just to mention on methodology, is that a lot of the times, you know, Nafi even mentioned this in the chat as well, where he looks for server-side vulnerabilities, and that's something that I really like as well. I don't spend as much time on client-side vulnerabilities these days, and that means that I choose not to spend that much time on that, and I choose to spend more time on finding server-side vulnerabilities. So it's just kind of personal preference, but you know, it kind of evens out in the time you spend to report all those low vulnerabilities or medium vulnerabilities compared to one critical vulnerability.
I mean, yeah, the ROI, I'll put it, it's what it comes down to, right? If you spend too much time on XSS, first of all, you have a higher chance of getting a dupe because you're not the only one looking for those. Versus the server-side vuln, it's going to get fixed a lot faster, and more than likely, you're not going to be duped on it, unless you're really, really unlucky. Speaking of, so we talked about, like, this is something that I want to understand from everybody that comes on this show is, what makes a, you know, when you look at a website, you know, that experience and that tingly feeling of this is vulnerable, what makes a site interesting at a first glance when you look at it? What are some things to look for when you pull up a subdomain that quote unquote makes it interesting to hack on?
Yeah, sure. So, like, for example, if you see like a PHP info file anywhere on a subdomain, that is a huge indicator for me to say that, okay, well, wow, okay, this box probably has more PHP files. It's likely that these PHP files have not really been tended to, because why is there a PHP info file in general? Like, that's a really big indicator. Or when you see stuff like Apache default pages sometimes, or even directory listings that are a bit dodgy. For IIS, you know, even seeing the IIS default page, that for me is, all right, well, that's interesting. I wonder what's on this box. There's, you know, there's so many different things that I guess in my mind I can think of where experience has brought that, okay, well, looking at this before it's found me vulnerabilities, it's going to find me more vulnerabilities this time around. And that even comes around when you're doing content discovery. So sometimes you might be doing content discovery on a host and you see this specific endpoint and you know that it's responding in like XML. And that should trigger something where it's like, okay, well, I should be sending this endpoint XML because this is really dodgy. It might be XXE or something. And yeah, it's just really from experience, as Naam said as well.
Didn't that the XML thing scored you like a 30K bounty somewhere where we were traveling. Not to mention where it was, but I think the last time I saw you, that was exactly what you found and got you paid immediately.
Yeah, no, it was really good. That's exactly it. Like, and it's nuts because sometimes you even think, what if my word list didn't have that word? And that's where it gets tricky. So that's yeah.
Speaking of word lists, so this is something that everyone asks me, and I'm gonna put it on you this time. Where do you get your, outside of common speak, where would you get your word list from for somebody that's new, at least, for directory brute forcing?
I really don't think you can go wrong with taking a look at sec lists and combining some of the word lists there. Like I don't think there's anything wrong for starters to start using that word list. If you do want to go more complex, and I know you said don't include common speak, but if you do want to go more complex, I really do think that making your own word list is what makes sense. And at that point, sometimes it might be for a specific target, sometimes it might be more generally, but for beginners, what's in the sec list actually works really effectively, and it's not overload. You're not sending way too many requests. You're actually, like, one of the big problems we have with common speak is the word list can blow out to a very, very large number, and you don't necessarily want to be sending that many requests all the time. So yeah, like if you do want to start developing your word list as you go on and as you develop in bug bounties, I just recommend looking at other word lists and finding other word lists and kind of understanding what's good and what's bad, and coming up with your own word list necessarily.
Yeah, my
That
biggest
really makes a lot of
advice for
sense.
the making your own word list is like what we were talking about. Looking at JavaScript files, you see an API endpoint, looks interesting. Dump it in your word list. What is it to say that you're not going to find this on another subdomain of the same target or even on a different target and come up with that same API route, right? A lot of the times the names are pretty much the same when it comes down to APIs, and it doesn't hurt to have that extra, few lines of word listing from stuff that you have found interesting in JavaScript files. Cool. So let's move away
Yeah,
a little bit
totally.
from recon. I want to. Do you do last question on on recon? Do you do a lot of GitHub recon?
Yeah, actually, we do, and Ruby at Asset Node, he's actually done quite a lot more than I have, and he's shown he's actually come up with some really cool stuff regarding GitHub Recon. But yeah, GitHub Recon, it's kind of essential these days. It's a part of my process, and often it's surprising how many times you find critical vulnerabilities on GitHub before you've even started looking at the attack surface, really like digging into the subdomains and so forth. Regarding GitHub Recon, like, I think there was a really good blog post that came out recently that I thought was really cool, and even kind of a tip that I thought was really cool at a technical perspective. I didn't know this for quite some time, and I thought it was a really cool Microsoft Windows kind of IIS NTLM technique that was really cool. Where if you've got a host that is giving you NTLM authentication, in the sense where it's that login prompt, but it's using NTLM authentication, you can use like an nmap script to get all the NTLM info, like a HTTP NTLM info is the nmap NSC script. And what it will do is it will actually give you the domain, the internal domain for Windows that NTLM authentication is kind of interacting with.
Wow.
And you can use that domain to start doing more recon. So you can now search that on GitHub. Now, this wasn't my idea. This was a blog post that I read on NetSec. I just can't think of the author right now. But this in general was really cool because I didn't really know that, one, in NTLM authentication, you can leak that information.
Right.
And two, you could use that information that's leaked on GitHub. So it's some really cool stuff. I thought that I'd share it.
Do you automate GitHub or do you like to do it manually?
Yeah, so at Astronaut, we've automated a lot of the GitHub stuff, but when it comes to bug bounties, we kind of have a stream of stuff at Astronaut where we get like Slack notifications and so forth. But when it comes to particularly digging into particular assets or particular bounties, sometimes I monitor GitHub automatically, where it's just running on a cron job and letting you know if there's any new results coming up, doing change detection. So I do find it valuable, but these days I find that GitHub, you've really got to, in some bounties in particular, you've got to really be the first to get it to kind of get the bounty, as there's quite a lot of other people looking at GitHub these days as well.
Do you use GitHub only for credentials, or do you also use it for other things?
Endpoints are great to get from GitHub if possible. And it doesn't always happen, but sometimes you even find source code for entire applications that are online. And that rocks because you can now really understand how to own that application. But yeah, no, it's a hard one, man. Like really, any opportunity I get to hit GitHub up, when I have that feel that it might be worthwhile, I'll do it, because there's just so much information there that people have published that I don't think they've realized is public.
Yeah, and like one of my favorite things is like this is something that Brett and I started doing was when we were confused with Airbnb, we'll just throw the endpoint on GitHub, and sure enough, someone wrote some garbage around it already. So it helps to find how those routes work, you know.
Yeah, and one time I think I found on Yahoo there was this. I found credentials for one of these FTP servers, and
Nice.
I ended up logging into this FTP server, and I was like, what can I really do with this? I wasn't able to escalate much, but we ultimately found that we could upload a HTML file and make it persist in XSS under a Yahoo subdomain under Firefox. So that was the furthest we got with that one. But it all started with GitHub once again. Like we found the credentials there, the asset there, and then from there we then pieced it into a vulnerability. As much as the credentials itself being leaked were something of concern, I don't think that they were necessarily too sensitive, and there was nothing sensitive under those accounts. So escalating it further kind of made sense, but that was all done with stages and permissions and steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, the other thing is like one of the things that I leverage GitHub for myself is pretty much seeing like how they do their the patterns that you were talking about, right? Like, how do they name their dev staging sites? Where does it go? How do they do it without even running any subdomain discovery tools? And kind of like focusing on those dev sites and see if there's any credentials leaked, any internal sites that are leaked, and finding routes to any APIs or endpoints that are interesting to me. And now talking about GitHub and Recon, I'll move away from Recon a little bit. I want to talk about you and what you think about bug bounties. Number one question that I get a lot from folks is certificates. Do you believe in certificates, or do you think it's worth investing time into getting any of them? And if so, which one do you think is worth it?
Yeah, okay. I think that the OSCP cert is still worth it. And that's something that I've done myself. So I might be biased, but for full disclosure. But I did it with Nathan and another friend of ours, and we found it to be quite valuable because it kind of evened out our perspective of looking at attack surfaces and particularly looking at different types of devices and different types of networks that we weren't necessarily exposed to generally. Now, these days, you've got the hack in the box as well, which is quite good. But certifications like the OSCP, I still think are quite decent. I think that I learned quite a bit coming away from the OSCP, especially when it came to network reconnaissance, exploiting networks, exploiting systems where you need to escalate to root and so forth, which you don't normally get to do in bounties, but it's still quite valuable. To kind of understand how that all works, and even escalating Windows networks, how to go from nothing to domain admin, which is another thing where you might not get to do in bounties, but it's still quite valuable to know if you want to further your security career. It really does depend where you want to go. Bug bounties for me, bug bounties are phenomenal. I think that they're amazing. I think that they are actually furthering web application security research quite rapidly. I think that bug bounties give the opportunity for people like even myself, where I was 14 and working in Hungry Jack's, which is the Burger King equivalent in Australia. And I didn't really have any prospects at the time. And it was a really crappy job, needless to say. But I had made my first bounty from PayPal. And at that point, I just didn't show up anymore at work, and I just continued doing bug bounties.
Wow.
That also,
so you just quit your job on the spot?
Yeah, I just quit my job. I just stopped showing up because it was such a terrible job, man. I'd been doing it for 8 months, and they had paid me, I think, a total of $800, which is not that much money for 8 months.
And how much was that bounty you got?
$1,500.
So you got paid double what you made from your job in just one bounty.
Yeah, and I was just like, screw this. I'm not working at Hungry Jack's anymore. I'm just going to do bug bounties.
That's incredible.
But the other thing with PayPal is I actually have to thank them, because for a very long time in the beginning, I was submitting some of the worst bugs ever Like I was young and I didn't really understand the full security impact, and I was submitting things like SSL certificate issues and so forth. When I first started in bounties, I wasn't the best at finding critical bugs. In fact, like I wasn't that good at finding bugs. Full stop. So like it was very much so that 1.5K payment when I had found SSRF on Bill Me Later. That for me was the turning point for bounties, where it was like, okay, if I focus on this more, if I spend more time on this, it's definitely something that I can make more money on. But yeah, it was an interesting time. But yeah, I'm really thankful for bug bounties being around.
Yeah, man. I mean, I have a similar approach that you did. Like in the beginning, I was just finding garbage, dude. When I was doing Yahoo, I was finding like a couple XSS here and there, and then I was finding like full path disclosure and thinking those are important to report. And I was like, no, time to step this game up. And I found the SQL injections for me. Mine was 3 SQL injections on Yahoo. Which was like, to me, was like, okay, I need to double down on this bug bounty thing. Like, they paid me 9K for 3 bugs, dude. Like, I have to fucking make this work. Like, who else is gonna pay me 9K behind a computer in a month?
100%.
Right?
That's absolutely it.
And I bought my first car with that bounty. That was the first purchase I did
awesome.
with bug bounties. Yeah, and I think you and I have a very similar journey through bug bounties, at least. And I love hearing that, like, I wasn't the only one shit posting in bug bounties in the early stages.
Yeah, it just, the honesty is just there. It's like I was shit posting early days, and like it took me a while to really understand what impact is, and I think that's what's really important.
Yeah.
Once you understand where it's like, okay, well, these guys are paying me so much money because on their end, this is really bad for them, and this is really impactful. And nowadays, when I look at bounties, even when I look at finding bugs, it's just more about like, how impactful is this bug really? And are they really going to care about this bug when I send it in? If they're not, then should I be finding something more critical? But it's a journey, man. And I think you and I did have a very similar journey there. It's just it took some time, definitely, to get to that point where you have the confidence to just find good bugs. And even then, there are periods of time where you don't find much.
It's a continuous process. Yeah, I mean, it took me. I still don't think I'm to the point that I want to be, but it took me 4 years to get where I want to be. Like, I finally could produce bugs on a regular basis. And right now, I'm,
100%.
the biggest thing is also like stepping away from finding common best practices, right? Like moving away from finding information disclosures that don't have any impact. Focusing on the things that have impact is the biggest thing to do and the best approach to do. But yeah, I agree with back to the original question, OSCP, it's on my list of certs to go after. Just need to find the time. But I agree. Everyone seems to say OSCP is a good one to go after.
It can be a bit intense because of the labs, but generally, I think it will help you round out your skills when it comes to hacking and general computer security and breaking into networks.
Yeah. So we talked about like our journey about doing bug bounties. What was like 3 things you wish you knew when you first started doing bug bounties? That's a tough question, right?
It's a good one. I think the first one would be get better at burp. If I had first spent more time at really getting better at burp and optimizing my workflow there, it would have helped. These days, because I've spent a lot of time on burp, I wish we had an hour counter for burp. That would be really cool, because I think we'd fill that up really quickly. But with the number of hours that we spent on Burp Suite, it's gotten a lot better, where we now know all the keyboard shortcuts and so forth. But when I first started in bounties, if I had really gotten to know that and spend the time on that, I think it would have benefited me greatly. The second thing, I know there's some people that are amazing at finding bugs without actually writing any lines of code whatsoever. But the one thing that I do wish that I did more when I first started was really automating my workflow in my terminal, which doesn't mean I need to be writing a lot of complex scripts to do complex things, but just more so in Bash, that similar to how Ben has it set up, the functions and so forth, so that it's easy for you to start working on a target as quickly as possible. And the third thing was, I wish I knew initially back then that it pays off to be continuous, like you were saying as well, Ben, where it's like you're always looking at the attack surface and you're always kind of learning as well as you go. Like back then, if I had paid more attention to some attack surfaces, like that, back then there was one attack surface in particular that taught me this. And the reason it taught me this was just because of how much they paid. for their bugs. And it was like, okay, if I miss a bug, then I'm not going to be able to get that much money. And it's just so much that they were paying something like, 1.5K for an admin panel just being exposed. And they were paying, 7K for a subdomain takeover, which is quite a bit of money for just a subdomain takeover. And once you understand that, you can see where a lot of my tools and a lot of my methodologies have kind of formed from that initial program where they were offering so much money for that subdomain takeover. And for us, it was like, okay, the most important thing for us is getting that asset data to completion as close as we can to completion. So we came up with all these different techniques to kind of get that asset data to as complete as we can.
So is it accurate? Is it accurate to say like you see a continuous pattern, you automate it?
Yeah, definitely. Like just like how you automated some of the ways of extracting JavaScript for Airbnb, if you can see patterns where you can start understanding an attack surface a bit better, I think a lot of these hackers that we see today that are very successful with their approaches, like for example, I know PHWD as well. He automates a lot of his analysis when it comes to Facebook, and he's very successful at that. And I think that people that have kind of focused on particular programs or targets, if you can understand the patterns of how they deploy things, of how their applications look like when it comes from a JavaScript perspective, even, you can start monitoring things a bit better.
Absolutely. That's really good advice. Talking about coding, you said something about coding and bug bounties, right? And this is another hot topic. And I think you and I are the complete opposite sides of this. You are a monster developer, I feel like. You have some really good engineering background versus me sitting here in Bash and doing some stuff in Bash. Is it a requirement to know coding? And if it is or if it isn't, why? And how much should you know?
Well, it's a really good question, and it is kind of a hot topic. Like I love referring to NAFI as well in this, but at the same time, I do understand the merit of being able to write code. So just for background, NAFI's been hacking for around 10 years as well. He doesn't write much code, but he finds a lot of critical bugs, and he has a very good eye for finding security issues. He has claimed like he writes Bash here and there, but he doesn't necessarily write large scripts to do work for him. And Ben, on my side as well, like I really did start off as a hacker and then became a developer.
Wow.
And these days, the people that I work with at AssetNote, they're much better developers than I am, and they're actually leading the way forward. And I've come to accept that. But there's a lot of work that they're doing where it's like, wow, that's really really cool. And the automation aspect, it gets a lot more difficult when you're trying to do it for enterprise. So I think sometimes it's hard to compare some of the work we're doing at AssetNote with bug bounty work in particular, but when it comes to automation of bug bounties, like and programming, I don't think it's necessarily a bad skill to have. And I think that programming is definitely something that you can use to kind of propel your automation. So if there's things that you don't necessarily want to write it in Bash, and you have a use case to perhaps write it in like Golang or Python. Right. These days, I write a lot of my tools in Golang, but it seems that there's a lot of excitement around Rust as well. So I think that both those languages are worthwhile looking into when it comes to writing stuff for security.
Rust triggers me, man. Every time Rust comes up, I get very, very triggered. Thanks to Donut.
Why do you get triggered around Rust?
It's just how much Donut has been pushing Rust towards me, and how he's just so focused on Rust. Everything else, nothing matters around anything else other than Rust. And him and I talk a lot about it. So it makes it funny.
It's really cool, man, because like I wasn't a huge follower of Rust myself, but my roommate Huey, he writes quite a bit of Rust, and after seeing some of the results that it produces when it comes to concurrency and speed and reliability, it's really really cool. Like I love Golang, but when I looked at some of the work that my roommate was doing in Rust, I was like, wow, this is really awesome.
Wow.
And what Donut is doing. That as well just kind of adds on to my belief that Rust is really fast when it comes to certain things. And I think he's really optimized his DNS brute force. So I'm quite excited for him to release it. I just need to nag him a bit more.
Right. When you talked about coding, why is it important to learn even the basics of web development at least? Like, why is it important? It gives you some advantages, right?
Oh, totally. Like even just knowing the basics of how things are deployed, how to deploy your own web application, maybe even writing your own web application if you're interested in really getting into the deep deep internals, it would help quite a lot, because if you're going to write an application that has its own authentication, that can support users, that can do all these dynamic functionalities, and if you've ever done that before, you'll understand all the different moving parts that are required for that to actually be possible. And when it comes to understanding that, it becomes a lot easier when you look at applications that are built in a similar way, or at least you understand a bit more of how the backend works. And you can start making these guesses about how the backend might respond to things, because you've built something that's similar in the backend. So it's definitely beneficial. Like, I'm not going to shoot down learning how to program when it comes to bug bounties. I think that it kind of even teaches you a certain mindset of thinking when it comes to engineering and how these things are built and how you can deconstruct them. But at the same time, it's something that I'll say is not necessarily 100% necessary to kind of be successful at bug bounties, because I've seen a lot of hackers that don't necessarily have any programming experience, but they have built up that instinct that we talked about earlier over time. And interacting with these applications, they do really understand how these applications interact over time in the back end. But they don't come to the same conclusions through programming. They come to those conclusions through other ways.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like personally, I relate to this a lot. It's like, I didn't know, like, example, what Jenkins was really meant for. I ended up spinning up Jenkins on my own and just fucking with it, so I can understand why it's important to get Jenkins. And I know, like, I ended up doing research around it and writing a blog post with Snapchat just because I wanted to show why it was important. And again, when I came in, it was just like, I had no development with web. Outside of learning Java in college, that was my only exposure to programming. Nothing web related, and just everything was through bug bounties and tapping into your curiosity to build in that instinct and experience, right? I think curiosity plays a big role in all of this.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. Like, I was never like the best programmer. I was definitely someone who just made programs to make my final goal work for a very long time. And then once I've started, writing code at scale, it's such a different game, where it's you have to be very careful about how you write your code, and you have to be very consistent as well. But when it comes to writing code, I totally agree with you. You don't have to be a programmer in the sense of like writing code all day and night. But I've seen some people who've been very successful with it. Some people where they've just not had to be programmers and they've been successful anyways. Like getting around. And actually, I've met some people who've used scanning tools to kind of further their knowledge in application security as well.
Absolutely.
Where they'll look at the
one right here, myself.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, dude. Like that's another thing that I think absolutely works, where you don't necessarily have to be a programmer, but if you can start understanding how applications interact with certain inputs, and if you can see even Burp Active Scanner is great even today to start throwing at certain things. I know many programs don't allow it, but for the ones that you can do it on, there's a lot of really cool extensions now that do quite a lot of really cool things. Like ActiveScan++ throws a lot of really, really awesome payloads. Yeah. If you do end up finding something with these extensions, you might not know what it initially is, but digging into it and starting to understand what this bug is, how to exploit it, and so forth, that journey in itself is what you should really be going after once you find those bugs, because that's what's going to teach you how to find it again.
Yeah, I want to kind of like touch on the scanning thing. Like, it is good that you brought it up also, is like, if you are relying on scanners to find vulnerabilities, don't do yourself this disjustment, or how, I don't know what the word would be. Like, you are not doing yourself a favor by just reporting those bugs. You're kind of like doing something like, you're defeating the purpose of using those tools. If you're using tools, well, my journey with tools was I was running scanners and finding bugs, but instead of going and reporting it, I would try to exploit that bug manually on my own to understand what it did. And if I didn't understand, I would hit up people and be like, hey, I found this bug, my scanner picked it up, but I have no fucking clue how it worked. Do you mind showing me an example of it? Like, have you found this in the past, right? So don't go and it doesn't work. It backfires if you rely on tools. It doesn't even have to be scanners. Like, if you're doing directory brute force using dir search, right? You don't know why that tool works. You shouldn't be using it. If you're using SQL map and you have no clue why it works, and you don't even put in the time or effort to actually find that, it doesn't really benefit you at all, right? So I'm kind of glad you brought that up at least. It's good to see like other folks have done that. And I'm absolutely guilty of doing it myself, and it's really been helpful.
No, it definitely helps, man. Like, I'm like guilty of it myself as well. Like, I've learned quite a lot that way very early days. just because like it's surprising how much just reading the descriptions and understanding how to exploit it teaches you. I don't necessarily, I don't mean for people to take this path themselves, but Burp Active Scanner these days will give you a pretty good description to go on forward and understand how to exploit it further. I think it's really valuable for sure.
Do you spend a lot of time on CTFs?
I used to. So when I was in Sydney, I used to do CTFs with a local Sydney group at the University of Technology in Sydney. But it was pretty good, man. Like I learned quite a bit doing them. But at the same time, I enjoyed bounties a lot more because bounties are kind of a more realistic CTF to me. And it's just so much more exciting. It's so much more dynamic. There's so many more possibilities, and I just get more excitement when I find critical bugs on certain programs than I do when I own a CTF. There have been times though where Nathan and I will rock up at a conference like on the second day and hop on the CTF and we'll do all right. But other than that, recently I haven't really been doing them. How about you? Have you gone into CTFs?
Not really. I don't like the thing with CTF that pisses me off is like I know there's an answer, and I want to say like 8 out of 10 times it's some unrealistic crap that did not work in anywhere in real world. Like you will not see that shit on bug bounties, right? But it's good to like it's a good tool to push you into like thinking outside the box. That is a best valuable part of doing CTFs. Like you go, oh, I never thought of it this way, and I think that's what brings that skill set that gets transferred to bug bounties. Right? That's my only thing.
I agree with you.
Speaking of like CTFs and challenges, do you still do them, or is there any like maybe not CTFs, but any learning platforms like Hacker 101, Pentester Lab that you go to and test their challenges at all?
Yeah, I used to do Pentester Labs quite a bit, and I still recommend them. I think that they actually have some really good images up there and labs up there, especially for some of the more modern bugs that come out. But these days, when people come up to me and they ask me, how do I get into bug bounties, I have been recommending Hacker 101, and I have been recommending Portswigger's WebSec Academy, which I think is also an excellent resource. For example, recently they released all that HTTP smuggling attack stuff. And I'm pretty sure as a part of that, they even created labs so that people can start learning how to exploit that vulnerability on Portswigger. So I highly recommend that as well, because I know that people recently have been making heaps of money using those attacks on bounties.
Yeah, I gotta try those out. Maybe on Tuesdays when I do the CTF streams, we'll go on Burp Suits or Portswigger's labs and try them out.
Yeah, I saw a screenshot earlier where it was like someone got paid like, I don't know, like $30K or something from Verizon for a number of these bugs, where it was a decent number of HTTP smuggling bugs that he had sent through. I thought that was really interesting, and it's really awesome that people are weaponizing some of that research that James Keller has done.
It's insane to see, like, he goes, this is what I love about bug bounties. He does his research. He goes and like exploits as many targets as he can, right? And then he presents this research at a conference, and then you see a heap of fucking hackers just find the same stuff across all the bug bounty platforms, and it just becomes weaponized. Same thing with the VPN stuff Orange did. I still see hackers going after it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely like that these days. I think 2019 has been an awesome year for vulnerabilities that have dropped regarding application security. Like we've seen all these SSL VPNs tipple over just most recently. But beyond that, like there's just been so many vulnerabilities in, Atlassian products as well. We've seen quite a few this year. And yeah, it's just nuts because I've seen this thing where, and I think Matthias actually explained it really well in one of his presentations he did, where he said that sometimes you come across something called a golden goose bug. That was his term. And a golden goose bug in his definition is essentially something like, for example, a vulnerability that hasn't necessarily been disclosed or fixed fully yet, but you can replicate on all these bug bounties, and you're the first person to have that bug. No one else has that exploit. Now, this is sometimes tricky because the golden goose bug in Matthias's definition is usually something that you can fix through like something like configuration, or it can be put back onto like the actual person that owns that application to fix something up with it to end up fixing the vulnerability. Or it could just be that it's been patched, but no one has the exploit publicly except for yourself. And in that scenario, it can be quite profitable in bug bounties. You can go through all your different assets, and if it's for a major technology, like for example, if it's let's say Jira, let's say you have a major vulnerability there, you've reported to them, they've patched it, but there's still a lot of people that don't update Jira, so you now have a lot of targets in bug bounties that even though there is a patch out there, they haven't patched it, and you have the exploit. So golden goose bugs, I think, are really cool as well. I just thought I'd mention that, and Matthias came up with that phrasing, so that term. So yeah, it's definitely something to look for as well in bug bounties.
So when you just talked about like finding these golden goose bugs, right? How do you stay ahead of the game? So let's say tomorrow as an exploit drops for Confluence. Do you have a process in your recon where you tag things as potential software to bring it up later on?
So at AssetNote, we have this. We do get notifications on CVEs and things like that. But at AssetNote, we have like a reverse ignite where we'll go through a bunch of things and reverse them and just kind of understand in the patches how these vulnerabilities form. That's definitely something that a lot of companies have done in the past as well when it comes to finding regressions and finding further vulnerabilities. But I guess to your readers, if you're interested, then maybe look into reverse engineering a bit more. And looking into these patches as well that come through, because finding these golden goose bugs, there's a couple ways to do it. You can find these bugs yourself by going through the code and actually finding the vulnerabilities. And like I really think it's possible. I love white box testing. I love looking at source code. That might be different to other people, but going through source code and finding vulnerabilities, that's actually quite attractive to me when it comes to finding vulnerabilities in a wider scale. And if that's a skill that you guys can pick up when it comes to not even recon, just general hacking, reverse engineering, it can be really beneficial because there are a lot of technologies that you can take a look at the source code of, and there are a lot of technologies you can find bugs on and report them to the vendors as well.
What about fingerprinting stuff?
Fingerprinting stuff in what way? Sorry.
So do you fingerprint for like the SSL stuff that dropped? Like how to identify those? Do you have a fingerprint for Jira, for Confluence, for Jenkins?
Yeah. No, fingerprinting is super important. I think that a really good way to do it is just kind of anchoring it on certain paths. But I've seen some people that have done some really cool work with, even favicons, where they analyze favicons to see what technology it is, whatever. These days, fingerprinting, I highly recommend Wappalizer. It's something that you can, just install. It'll help you understand which technologies are running on whichever assets. That works as a pretty good fingerprinting method initially.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to eventually do, I started doing it as a stream on Mondays, was we would fingerprint different products. Like we did Jenkins, we did Confluence, we did what's different things that I know people use, just to know like how do we fingerprint them based on the favicon, maybe based on the path with directory brute forcing, and also the HTTP header.
Yeah.
Like Jenkins has its own headers, Jira has its own headers, Jira Server has its own headers versus Jira Cloud, right? And I kind of want to see like if other hackers are doing the same things or not.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's very much so similar on my end as well, man. Like when it comes to looking at paths, favicons, and certain patterns, you can look at style sheets as well. Sometimes I know that sometimes even some in Cold Fusion, for example, Cold Fusion 8, 9, 10, 11, there's a certain image that changes in MD5 hash every single version. So like you can fingerprint it that way as well. So there's some unique ways in fingerprinting stuff that I can think of, but immediately when it comes to mind, like I do some of the same techniques that you're talking about, and I think that they've worked really well so far. The WhatWeb tool that I recommended earlier, that actually has its own fingerprinting modules, and there's quite a lot of them. So it's quite good at understanding technologies as well. You might find it useful for that as well.
Cool. Yeah, I think somebody just linked Wappalizer on the chat. So if anyone wants to use it, go ahead. Someone just mentioned builtwith.com. Yeah, that's another tool you can use.
Builtwith is pretty good as well. But the reason I really like Wappalizer is that it's doing this real-time analysis, and something that I think is not really spoken about Wappalizer compared to other tools that I really like about it is that it does analysis of the JavaScript window elements. Like it looks the variable itself, it will look into that variable and it will then do some analysis to then determine things like version numbers. So you can look at like if you go on a page which has jQuery, for example, Wappleizer will tell you the exact version of jQuery that's running.
Wow.
And that's possible because it's inspecting these local JavaScript variables and understanding which version of jQuery it is.
Cool. I gotta give that a try. We'll put that on on the list of things to try on Sunday. I just realized I didn't ask you about this. Are you and Nafi own a charity of some sort?
We did have a nonprofit. Today it's been absolved, so it's no longer running. But
Wow.
for some time, we were sending a bunch of students and a bunch of people that were interested in InfoSec to conferences in Australia and New Zealand, mostly Australia. So we sent them to 3 conferences in a year. We had, I think 60 or so students all up, and it was an operation that spanned beyond myself. There was a couple more people that were involved, including Nafi, in kind of getting this all up. But, it was only absolved, I think, dissolved like 6 months or so ago. So it's only kind of recent. But, in the future, I think we might be doing something when it makes sense, but at this point, I think I'm just a bit too occupied with Asset Network.
Yeah, but I think it was a really cool thing to do. Like you've been there obviously yourself when you're in college, you don't have a lot of money, and you want to go to these conferences to learn to like build a future for yourself, and not having those resources sucks. But seeing you guys have hackers helping hackers was really, really cool.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And that's something that Nafi and I definitely felt when we came into this industry. It wasn't that welcoming as it is today. And I think that people should definitely be grateful about things like streams like this, and people sharing the amount of information and material on the internet in regards to becoming a better hacker. Like I haven't seen it be this great for a very long time. So I think that people taking advantage of stuff like these streams is definitely great. And I'm always happy to help when it comes to contributing some knowledge.
Yeah, I feel like when we all first started, like the only resources we had was like OWASP and maybe some pen testers who wrote stuff up. But nowadays, like you just gotta put a keyboard in and throw bug bounties next to it, and there's a fucking heap of write-ups that come up.
It's nuts. It's so nuts, and I feel like bug bounties definitely have like furthered web app sec research so
absolutely,
much.
Man, absolutely.
Like, so much.
Let's do a couple long questions, and I end my streams with like a quick questionnaire of like easy stuff. But before we move away from that, let me see. What is it like? What is life and work balance for you, man? Like it's 5 a.m. right now, and you're up. I know you're sometimes you're up this late doing work, but how do you balance that shit, dude? You do a lot too. That's what I'm curious to know.
Yeah, it's a good question. Work-life balance is interesting. I've had times where I've worked crazy hours for other companies, and now I'm working crazy hours as a part of the startup. But I think the one thing that's still important is I'm still really happy at the end of the day, and when I go to sleep, when I wake up, I'm still happy. So I know that there's some sort of balance happening, whether or not for me I work too much and I'm okay with it. But as a part of running a company, there's a lot of jobs that we have to do that don't necessarily fit into anyone's buckets, but we still have to do these jobs. And at AssetNote, we've definitely been growing really quickly over the last year or so. So it's been quite a lot of work to kind of make sure that our platform is doing awesome, and also our customers are happy. But in order to do that, work-life balance, in my perspective, when it comes to bounties, I've had to scale down significantly because I've had to focus a lot more on my business at our business at AssetNote. But with bounties, when I've scaled down, I decided that I'll still try and find critical vulnerabilities, and I'll try and look for depth, not breadth, as I was mentioning earlier. So these days, I'm actually looking at core assets. I'm not even doing as much reconnaissance as I used to, because most of that is kind of covered on AssetNote's side. And when I'm doing core assets and I'm looking at specific core things, I'm going into workflows that I don't expect people to go into. And there's actually some advice that Franz Rosen had, and I thought it was awesome advice. Is go after the things inside applications that look like they're hard to use. Because not many people have, well, if we go after that assumption, the assumption means that not many people have probably tried to use them. It hasn't been tested as well. People who are supposed to test them might have not understood the full extent of what the functionalities are. Yeah, but no, like, yeah.
How do you deal with like burnouts and like no bug scenarios when you don't find any bugs? Like, when do you know like you're burning out, and how do you deal with it?
I think I've gotten a lot better these days than I was in the past, and I think it does come with kind of a couple of things. Like I remember when I first started in InfoSec, I did have some sort of imposter syndrome as well, so I wasn't really that confident in my skills, and it took me a while to get that confidence. But even today, like burnouts, they definitely happen, and there's been times and whatnot where I've just had no bugs whatsoever, and I start doubting my abilities in finding bugs, even though I'm spending time in finding these bugs. But you just got to convince yourself that, yeah, potentially there might not be bugs today. Might just need to keep on looking. And it's not necessarily that you're not a good hacker. It's just that there might be more effort involved to get to that goal. I think a lot of this comes down to effort. Like I think none of us can admit to saying that we automate all our workflow to the point where we just always get bugs. Like sure, we can get bugs out of our automation, but we still spend a lot of time when it comes to understanding attack surfaces, when it comes to attacking them even and exploiting them. And I just think that like I wish I could convey to all the viewers that we spend maybe 20, 30 hours sometimes before finding a good bug. And that could just be reality sometimes on attack surfaces. But burning out, like the best thing I can recommend is kind of balance it out with other healthy hobbies. Like at the moment, I'm doing so much more development than I am hacking these days. And that's actually been really good on mental health because when it comes to hacking, sometimes it can be quite pressuring to keep up with previous goals, and I've just kind of toned that down. I've also understood as like humans, you often compare your success with your previous success.
Yeah.
So like something that I used to often do is I would make like, I would have a very phenomenal month in bug bounties or a very phenomenal, 6 months of bug bounties. And if my next 6 months weren't looking like that or they weren't equivalent, I would feel really shitty about that. I'd just feel not so great. Like, did I not keep up? Like what happened with all this growth? And you're comparing yourself to your previous success. But I think it's more important to just kind of at the end of the day, just enjoy what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, for me, like money aside, I still enjoy finding bugs, which I think is a core thing for me. That's very important to all of this.
Yeah, I think the passion is what drives you at that point. And as long as you have that passion,
100%.
you have that light inside of you, I think is what keeps you going. I had a question from the
And
chat. Go ahead, Nana, go ahead.
Just saying, you don't have to be a total genius to own bug bounties. Just got to have that passion, like you were saying. Like, just got to have that persistence, I guess.
Yep, passion and persistence is a huge part of bug bounties. Speaking of motivation, before I ask this chat question, how do you keep yourself motivated? Do you set up goals? Do you is it just like, is it to prove that you can?
That's actually a really good question. My roommate Huey, so it's a funny story. So Huey actually does a lot of our API work and front end work. He's an awesome hacker. He's a chief number runner. That's what we call him internally. And he's my roommate as well. And I met him at a computer science camp when I was 14 or so. But when we met, he had a goal that he said to me was like, "Hey, Shubs, I want to make $100 million before I'm 30." And I'm like, "Shit." I'm like, "Shit, that's a real goal. Like, that's a real big goal." But when I heard that goal, I was only 14. But like, I was like, "Damn." Like, imagine setting that goal for yourself, making $100 million before 30. That sounds great. Like, but it doesn't really matter whether or not I actually make that 100 million or whatever else. It's just that vanity goal and setting that really, really high goal. It's kind of motivates me every day to be like, okay, well, I could probably be doing more to get further towards that goal. And what are the things I need to do to get there? Even if I get somewhere close to that goal, even like the lowest amount, but I'd be happy that I tried to get to that goal.
Yeah, I mean,
and I guess that's kind of, yeah.
It's better to go down swinging and not try at all, right?
100%.
That's awesome. One of the questions that came from the chat was, how do you pick your targets?
Picking targets, that actually is a really important thing. Like, you'd have seen that I've done a lot of work on Uber and I've done a lot of work on PayPal recently. And for the most part, for me, I just need to know that, one, there is like a new attack surface that's coming out on these targets, and two, when I submit vulnerabilities, that they're going to actually pay me in a decent amount of time, and that they're going to pay me a decent amount as well. Once I find that a program does this, where I've given them a good vulnerability, something that's a high quality vulnerability in my eyes, and I sincerely believe that it should be paid a decent amount as per the payouts table. And if they actually pay as per their payouts table and they do it in a reasonable amount of time, like that's a big green tick in my books, and I'm going to spend more time on that bug bounty. And I've had those scenarios with Verizon's bounty, with Yahoo's bounty, with Uber's bounty, with PayPal's bounty, and many others, even like some other private ones as well. But my criteria is essentially if they pay me a decent amount of money, if it's a decent bug and they do this consistently once or twice, like I start looking more and more in this program because I'm invested in their success as much as they're invested in mine. And yeah, I think the only other thing is that one really important part when I do all of my reporting is that I spend quite a bit of time in writing out my reports because I think it's super valuable and increases the bounty amount as well.
How do you decide when to move away from a program to another program? Or do you are you doing multiple programs at once? Or is there any way when you go, okay, I'm done with this program for now, I'm going to move away from it and come back to it later? What triggers that change?
There is a couple programs that I always do, but the change that gets triggered is if they don't pay for a long time, if they start reducing the payouts as to what they were before. So like I've had this in the past where I've submitted bugs to a program and for a very long time, the payout has always been this very high amount. And then they've corrected that amount to a lower amount over time. And then that's like, okay, well, now my models don't necessarily work anymore with this program. And I have to reassess, or they'll start paying me 2-3 months in. And that's when it gets stressful sometimes. One thing I've had to learn early on in HackerOne, when I was kind of getting into full-time bug bounty hunting, was I needed to have a backlog of bugs in order to ensure that I was getting paid a certain amount of money every month to cover living expenses and so forth. So like I had a backlog of maybe 20 or so bugs. But in the scenario of changing and which ones I pick and so forth, like if I find that if I really do feel like just injustice has been done to me in a bug bounty program, I just won't participate in that program anymore, and I'll move on to something else.
It's awesome. That's a good way to put it. I think this is something that came from our chat. I think JD was asking this question, so I hope that answered it. One last question before we get to the speed round. We'll end it on this note. Advice to newbies. What is an advice you would give to newbies who want to just start getting in bug bounties? Any or even general advice for people that have started in bug bounties, a year ago and they wanted to go to the next level? Just let's do both. Let's start with newbies first.
Yeah, sure. If you're a newbie, I think that application security is really what you want to trying to focus into when you come into bug bounties. And the reason I say that is because most of the targets that I've been seeing, and I have been seeing some changes recently where there are a few more blockchain projects and so forth, but for the most part, you're dealing with application security. You're dealing with trying to understand how these applications work with certain inputs and outputs and how to manipulate them into doing things they're not supposed to. So a really good base of application security, I think, is absolutely necessary when it comes to bug bounties. Whether it be you're reversing the Steam clients, whether it be you're dealing with blockchain-related stuff, or you're dealing with just simple web apps, all of those things are going to require some sort of knowledge of understanding how applications work and how you can deconstruct them, how they can be manipulated or exploited to do certain things. So when I first started in bug bounties, like as Ben said, at the time we didn't have many resources. We had things like OWASP, and we had things like certain glossaries of different attack methodologies and so forth, but nothing that was as solid as today, where you've got things like Pentester Lab, which I know do have a lot of free resources. Then you've got WebSec Academy with Portswigger, which we mentioned earlier. I still highly recommend that. In fact, I want to go through and do the HTTP smuggling labs at some point because I think it will help me understand that a bit more myself. But yeah, there's definitely so many resources these days as a newbie, and it can be kind of hard understanding what to go after. But if you can just pick one, let's say it's hack the box, if you want to understand how to hack into Windows boxes and so forth and Windows networks, that's more a role where you want to get into pen testing, and it might help you with bug bounties, it might not help you. There are some things there where it does very much so feel like a CTF. And then there's also things like Pentester Labs, where it's not necessarily a CTF. It's very straightforward. They've laid out to you, this is the CVE we're targeting. This is the vulnerability you're supposed to be exploiting. And they have a guide to help you in case you don't understand it. All these tools, I think, as a newbie, can help a lot initially in understanding application security and bringing it to bug bounties.
Awesome. That is great advice. I think I'm trying to do more hack the box stuff, but it's hard to do them on a stream without spoilers. But I think you're absolutely right. You should, like, if you are going to focus on web, you should always have different focuses. Like, you're going to focus on other things on the backside of it when you're doing all this. Your screen froze on me. I want to make sure you're still here, Shabs. There we go. You're back.
No,
Your screen
here.
froze here. Cool. Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Are you good? Cool. All right, let's get to the speed part of this.
Yep.
I have this that I did with this with Tommy earlier, but I added a new section to it. So the first one is I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. It's like your first whatever I'm going to ask, and then the second part of it is I'm going to say a word, and I want you to tell me the first thing that goes through your mind. So the first one, we'll start with the easy questions. Favorite program?
PayPal.
Wow. Favorite bug type?
SSRF.
First bug you found and reported?
Is this the first bug that was rewarded, or is this the first bug that I was just reported? And
Let's do both.
Does it matter if it was actually? Okay. First bug that I reported was probably an XSS. The first bug that was rewarded was probably an SSRF.
It's awesome. I think we talked about the SSRF. First purchase with a bounty?
Oh, that's good. It would have to be my MacBook that I ended up using for 4 years plus.
That's awesome. What is your best purchase you have done?
Best purchase that I've done. Honestly, man, like I'm not too sure when it comes. Maybe an ultra-wide monitor, because that's helped me quite a bit with my recon.
Cool. Let's keep going. Hackers you collaborate with?
Yep. Matthias, Nafi, Huey, my roommate, all the Astronaut teams, so Ruby, Sean, Pat as well. Then who else, man? Like there's quite a few people, even Andre from
cool.
Portugal. Yeah, he's awesome to collaborate with. There's a bunch of local hackers that I send messages to. There's so many people I collaborate with. I can't recommend it enough. Like if there's more people you can get into your networks that you can collaborate with on bugs, I would recommend it. But it's also sometimes hard because I know that we all live in different time zones and it's a very dynamic community. So it can be difficult. So maybe picking people in your own time zones or somewhere close to you is better sometimes, especially with collaborating on bugs real time.
Do you have anybody on your wish list of collaborating with that you haven't?
Man, on my wish list, I actually haven't had the chance to collaborate properly with friends. I'd like to give that a shot because I'm curious, because I know that Nafi has and Matthias, they usually get together in Vegas and hack a bunch of stuff, and that sounds like a lot of fun. So I've had with Matthias, and that's been a lot of fun as well. It's very interesting to see how everyone has their own thought patterns and how they think. But you know that when there's people with a lot of experience, you guys can really quickly agree on things and move forward in certain attacks, because you know some of the things you're testing and the outcomes they've led to based on your experience. You just straight away go to the next thing. I have had some embarrassing times though where we've done some really complicated hacks and realized that there's a lot easier ways in. I'm not sure if that's ever happened to you, but yeah.
Yeah,
but
it's
anyways,
overthinking it. So. Yeah, overthinking it, and someone else is like, "Oh no, I can just do this, and it's done."
Yeah, definitely. Matthias definitely gets me for that one. Like, there was one time where we were doing a Salesforce bounty. I think it was a HackerOne competition, and he had found an endpoint. Well, we'd all found this host, and we'd all done this recon on this host, and we'd all done this brute forcing of the API endpoint. And we'd found all these different gnarly API endpoints that were all responding with 401s. But Matthias was smart enough to capitalize a single word in that API route. And instead of blocking him with a 401, it just gave him the full response with all the data. And everyone missed that, man. Like both Nathan saw it, I saw it. A bunch of people saw that host. A bunch of people saw those routes. We just didn't make it an uppercase character. Like stuff like that. Like we'll miss stuff like that all the time, where some people like Matthias, who has a critical mindset, critical logical mindset, critical thinking mindset, where he'll find these things like this, where we're just like, wow, now we're always going to try that.
Absolutely. Favorite tool?
Favorite tool, asset note. But okay, if I can speak other tools at the moment, then look like it's hard. Like I really do like WhatWeb, so let's just say WhatWeb. I'd like you guys to check it out as well. Andrew definitely has put a lot of effort into that tool, and it does show. So I'd recommend it.
Awesome. And then let's talk about one hobby of yours outside of developing tools and hacking. What does Shubs do for fun?
Man, I'm a huge fan of like electronic music. Like, and my roommates, they're also very much so in very similar mindset where it comes to we go to all these gigs in Melbourne. So I just moved to Melbourne recently,
Nice.
and I used to live in Brisbane in Australia, and I grew up in Sydney. But the reason we moved to Melbourne is because it's got this really awesome nightlife, and when it comes to hobbies outside of really hacking, like don't get me wrong, 90% of my time does get spent in hacking.
Right.
But when I'm not hacking and when I'm not developing stuff, it's just like going out to these gigs with my roommates to these electronic gigs and jungle music in particular as well. My roommate, he just has like stacks of records, so he just puts on quite a lot of really cool music. But yeah, no, that is kind of my hobby, just going out with my roommates to all these different electronic gigs.
All right, so now I'm going to throw you some words. Just tell me whatever comes to your mind or whatever it means to you. Example, asset note.
Awesome team.
Nafi.
Awesome hacker.
Burp Suite.
The best tool to use to hack web apps.
Yahoo.
Pays out pretty well for RC.
Bug bounties.
Lots of money.
HackerOne.
Good platform.
And last but not least, collaboration.
Vital to finding criticals.
Cool. Well, this is all I had. I want to see if the chat here has any questions for you. I know it's really, really late your time, but I really, really appreciate you joining me this late your time, dude. Like, this is mind-blowing with amounts of stuff. I always take notes. This was a page of note that I took during yours on this side, and then I showed to the interviewer who I interviewed. And this is another page of notes that I've interviewed. I take some notes, and I try to implement them during my next stream. So thank you so much for doing this, man. This was really, really valuable to me. I think everybody on the stream also got extreme value out of it. Thank you so much for doing this, man. I would give you a hug if we were in person, but knowing that we're not, I'm looking forward to seeing you again sometimes at some other events. And
yeah,
I really, really thank you, man. Thank you so much for doing this. I can't thank you enough for being on this stream.
All good, man. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later, man. Have a good night or good morning, and I'll see you around.
All right, catch you. Bye.
There it is. This was Shubs, aka InfoSec AU, awesome hacker, beast hacker. If you are interested in looking at his Twitter profile and follow him, make sure you do by going to InfoSec AU. Give him a follow. Absolutely awesome dude. Very, very knowledgeable guy. Really cool stuff. And this is his GitHub. If you want to go follow his GitHub and you want to use Altdns or any of the tools that we talked about, they're all also up here. Give it a go and give it a try. Cool. So I'm going to call it a night or a day, if where you're at, depending on where you guys are at. Again, thank you all for joining, and I hope this was valuable to you guys. Next week, I have Peter Jaworski coming on. And you're also able to see the entire schedule for the month if you go to my stream page, go to Twitch, and go to my events. You can see who everybody is that's going to be on here. Also, it's September, so it's half off to subscribe to any of your favorite streamers outside of looking at my stuff. So if you find a streamer that's valuable too, it's been helpful, this is the month that you want to start doing subscriptions because it's cheaper than what you usually do. Again, thank you all for joining. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday with me. I will be back on Tuesday to do more CTFs. So if you want to hack with me, do some Hacker 101, bug bounty notes, or potentially hack the box challenges, I will see you all on Tuesday. Out to that, again, thank you so much for joining. I really, really appreciate everybody subscribing, following, Thank you for the follow, Dark Code. Anybody giving me a follow, subscription, giving subscriptions up to other people as a gift, or even cheering and giving bits. Thank you so much. Couldn't thank you guys enough for supporting this. I will be back on Tuesday. See you guys.